question is, can we see the mines?
No. 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 No.
There was like...
Jesus. No. 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 Ah.
30 seconds.
Where the fuck did you come from?
Shoot him! Shoot him! Stop reloading! Run! Run!
No! No! Fucking hell! Oh!
No.
Hello.
Oh, you dickhead!
That's another death for Fairy.
We're going in.
Yes, we're in. Sorry,
We're in.
Countdown was running out. We were just chatting shop just before.
I was just about to say all my bank details.
Yeah, we added a little bit of music to the beginning of all the old podcasts.
But now
don't say we never do nothing for you.
People that watch the live stream are now are now not getting the same product.
They never did. They got all this weird chat around the edge of it.
Well, you know, I've always tried to give the audio podcast some extra value, and now I'm achieving that on several fronts.
Oh well, good. Yeah, I think it fading out underneath our voice, I think will be really nice. I think I'll add that little premium touch. It'll feel deliberate. That's what I like about it.
It'll feel deliberate rather than, what is this? Jonas accidentally's gone and added 19 seconds of a musical track to the podcast he edits. That must be a mistake.
Thank you for resubscribing, Koto. 29 months. Boy, oh boy.
What a mistake.
But a happy one.
What a mistake that Koto keeps making.
Well, I'm glad they keep making it.
I keep making that mistake as well.
And hello, Steltech. Welcome. Can you hear us both? I'm going to start recording on Audacity. Hello, Nompta. Welcome.
I should start recording as well.
Where
No
are
track.
you?
Turn off monitoring.
Is that your old USB mic that you got there?
Yeah, something went wrong with the audio interface and the Rode microphone. I wasn't able to get audio out. Honestly, I need to troubleshoot it, but I don't have another setup that I can figure out what the broken element is. So yeah, I've gone back to the USB mic purely as well because the USB mic just delivers. It is good quality. I can't control it as finely as I could, obviously, the interface and everything, but it consistently just tends to be a damn good microphone. So
I noticed that yours has cracked on the same place that mine cracked.
What, the little plastic cover? That was quite fine actually until I took it with me. Do you remember I had to record the podcast in that flat?
Yeah.
That's when it broke because I took it in a bag and I didn't have a good way of, stopping pressure from being applied.
Mine got fully fucked up. Mine is now
fully
out of
fucked
commission.
up.
I
love fully fucked up.
So you got to be careful with that now because the glue around the edge of the mesh on it can come undone. Mine slowly came undone, and because the thing on the top of it had cracked, it basically just sort of opened up and released the mesh, and then it was just a bit of a pain in the ass. But
Interesting.
I always had it as a backup in case I needed it, but it's
honestly,
Okay,
I kind of prefer this microphone even though it's not the kind of industry standard, obviously having just not using a USB mic really tends to be the kind of voice acting standard, but I record good shit. So.
I'll be honest, the oh dear, Kote. The main reason I like this microphone is not even really the audio quality. It's the fact that I can hear myself, and that Laura and I can both run a microphone at the same time, and you don't get the USB delay, which causes oddities. But yours sounds great, and you used it on the last podcast and it sounded great. It was only slightly different with that one than it was with the other one. So,
To be honest, I haven't used the other one for a while.
oh, okay. Well, then it's
So,
just the
so
room.
any differences was probably just the
room
room or
yeah.
my treatment of the audio. But
Yeah, fair
anyways, good to see you, buddy.
Good to see you too.
Let's should we take a moment to breathe? I know you've just rushed from one thing to another to another to another.
Man, it's been a busy day. I was buying IKEA furniture. I was helping out an elderly neighbour.
What?
I was firing my driving instructor. I was, yeah, all these things and more. And then doing some actual work. Doing some actual work for my job.
And a full-time job in amongst
Yeah.
all of that somehow.
We had to do. We're hiring at the moment. We went through a bunch of people who had applied for the job, and that's a funny thing to do. Is like go through people's applications for a job, and there's still a part of you in your head, even though I've done what I do for like a decade. There's still part of me that's like, why are you asking me? What? Surely there's someone who's qualified to do this, right?
Yeah. Surely someone's done this longer than me. Me.
Yeah.
I haven't got to that stage yet, but my team is so small that it's only inevitable that I will have to step up and look at applications if people want to join my team, because there's just so few other people who could do that.
Yeah.
But the fact is I am still very new to my team, so that just doesn't feel right.
You'll be like, do you know, like, they'll be like, so what do you guys do? And you'll be like, what do you think we do?
Yeah.
That's a good question.
What would you like me to do? What would you like me to do?
What would you like? I'll do anything.
Calendar's looking a bit clear. What do you want to do next Sunday?
So I've still got, despite I've had this cold for 11 days now, and now I'm at the point where I'm like clearing all the gunk.
Yeah.
So I will try and do that when I'm not like not in the middle of my own bits. So
yeah. If I'm monologuing my own, if I'm doing my monologue review, by the way, just make as much fucking noise as you like now, because by default I tend to just take the entire section of someone's monologue and just mute the other person no matter what, unless I can see that, sometimes we do interrupt the monologue with the tiniest bit of dialogue. But it just tends to be
for the live stream viewers. That just
Oh no, yeah. For the live stream viewers, just go full ham nose blast on the microphone while I'm talking.
Just play a little xylophone.
Yeah,
Bang
exactly.
A tin can.
Start a construction site like outside the house. Just
Why not?
I don't know what else you can do.
Build myself a little shack.
Start learning Mongolian throat singing.
Okay. Yeah.
How do you think? What is lesson 1 of Mongolian throat singing? What do you think that sounds like?
My first thought, my first thought was just lubing the throat, obviously.
Lubing the throat.
Yeah.
With butter, oil, water,
whatever you can get your hands on. Just anything. Because if you don't, and it gets all dry and cracked up.
Yeah. In that half a second, I feel like I should probably have just downed a bottle of lube.
Down that bottle of Frangelico in the background.
That's there because my hydration tonight is sponsored by Frangelico.
Okay, good. I don't know if I've ever had Frangelico.
It's a hazelnut liqueur, which makes it it's like alcoholic Nutella, but without the chocolate element.
Oh,
it's really nice. It's my favorite, honestly.
That sounds lovely.
Oh, I'll try and get some the next time you or I are in the same space that isn't a pub that would get mad at us for having brought a bottle of our own liqueur.
Sneaking out bottles of Frangelico.
Exactly. Podcast tonight, is that what we're doing?
I need a TT.
I've been making TTs my Twitter username, and I think I'm going to change my Twitter name to whatever you call me in the TT. So right now I'm called
I
Right now, I'm
can't
called
nick off you.
yeah.
is
I'm called Jonas Turn-Based Tactical
turn-based tactical
Galway
guy.
because I
That's quite
started
a
playing
good
it.
one.
I started playing a turn-based game. Yeah.
That's a good one. The thing is, I never remember the ones I've already done, so I start to worry: am I going to do one again?
I know what you mean. I know what you mean. We really should be writing these down, like in that we've got that spreadsheet that just has literally everything we do every month.
Hmm.
We should just put it. We should just put.
If we were popular enough, someone would do that for us.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. Or if we ever, if we have a fanatic fan, even in the future, they could go back and catalog all the old ones.
Yeah.
Yeah, couldn't they, Koto? And then they could send us.
All right, I think I've got one. It's
Trying to
not good.
recruit
It's not good, but I've
our
got
audience into working for us.
one.
You got some examples in
Oh,
the chat there with
I
a niche London Underground joke, which always tickles us in particular. We're such niche London Underground appreciators. So
you did
that's
review Monster Hunter Rise, didn't you?
I think I did, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So it's a rewind. All right. You ready?
Yeah.
Oh, we need to
yeah.
countdown.
Yeah, we do. Okay, the countdown is going to go 3, 2, 1, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'll put my card back where it should be. You ready?
Yep.
3, 2, 1, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Smashing.
Lovely.
All right.
Okay. Ready when you are.
Hello and welcome to the latest episode of the Bunyip Review. I am your co-host, James the Bunyip Man Willis, and I am here with my co-host, Jonas Trap Toddler Galway. How you doing, Jonas?
I don't mean to alarm you, but I can't move from my current location because I'm trapped.
Well, that's fine, because we're recording a podcast. So for the next 2 hours, it doesn't matter.
I feel like if I were an adult, that would be true, but I'm a toddler. So my my physical safety, I think, should be a priority.
Well, personally, I think that the podcast is a priority. We'll call your parents afterwards. For now, we're going to need you to review shows about violence and death and sex. Can you do that for us?
Please don't call my parents. They're the ones that trapped me.
This has gotten very dark very quickly. We're going to have to move away from this.
Oh, you're right. You're right.
But
You should have thought of that before you called me a trapped toddler.
Yeah, I know. I don't really think about where the bits are going to go.
Yeah,
I need to get the words together, and then almost immediately I regret them. But anyway, it doesn't matter. Well, let's move on, shall we? Let's talk about some shows, because that's what we do here on the Bunyip Review. If you're new here, it's not just weird toddler jokes. It's also where we review TV shows, movies, and video games, sometimes non-video games. And each month we also watch something random on Netflix, which this month was Barbie as the Prince and the Pauper. So you got that to look forward to at the end. For my reviews this month, I'm going to be talking about The Last of Us. I'm going to be talking about Atomic Heart, the brand new action game, and I'm going to be talking about Who Framed Roger Rabbit. And Jonas, what are you going to be talking about this month?
Yeah, I'm talking about The Patient, which is a show on Disney Plus. I'm talking about a game. Interestingly, you're doing Atomic Heart. I'm doing Wild Heart, so we've got to make sure not to get. Yeah. It's descriptive heart. Well, what's adjective? Adjective hearts.
Heart Month really should have been February, but
Heart Month. Yeah,
never one to do things on time.
How romantic that could have been. And my film is going to be the it's just Sound of Metal, which is an Amazon Prime original film. And of course, I'll be joining you in talking about Barbie Princess and the Pauper, not Prince and the Pauper. Get your royalties right.
I apologize. But first, we always start with a little bit where we do a rewind. We talk about things that that have changed since we reviewed them, or one of us has played that the other one has like reviewed earlier, or something like that. And this month I have played a little bit of Monster Hunter Rise, which is a game that you reviewed, Jonas, a while back. I had played World with you at points, and Rise is its sequel. Yeah, so you were quite glowing about Rise when you reviewed it, weren't you?
I mean, I think Monster Hunter's kind of at the state now where they will always do good games once you push past like their learning curve.
Mm.
And obviously it's a genre thing, right? Like if you're not going to like the genre, then it wasn't for you in the first place. But I think if you like any one Monster Hunter game, the newest ones are always just going to keep kind of just impressing and just giving you more of what you like, in the same way that if people like Pokemon games, they're probably going to keep liking Pokemon games, that sort of
Yeah.
thing. So yeah, I enjoyed Monster Hunter Rise. I enjoyed it particularly because it was on the Switch first, which meant I could like do little hunts on the bus. And obviously it was very
Mm.
accessible. And I liked it because it was, compared to Monster Hunter World, more emphasis on maneuverability, just getting around the map fast. You know, if you need to go up something vertical or you need to travel a long distance, mechanics in the game that made that quite easy for you. Whereas World would kind of expect you to clamber and run and sprint and climb and really navigate that environment through, which I think it's interesting because what I'm going to be talking about later is going to revisit a lot of these themes. How are you getting on with Monster Hunter Rise though?
So I'm playing it because not because I wanted to play it on my own, but because I have a group of friends who I play like 4-player multiplayer games with, and one of them wanted to play this. It was 4 players, so we started playing it. It was on Game Pass. I think that some things have been vastly improved. The fact that you can play multiplayer right off the bat, you don't need to worry about like having to go through weird story things, or like it's relatively easy for Monster Hunter to get a multiplayer session going and just get into a hunt, and it works. I think that the movement is much better. I think that being able to ride your dog around the map. I think that being able to use like the bugs to like launch yourself forwards or climb up walls. That's a really great improvement. I think the UI is still impressively trash for a modern game. I do not understand how the developers of Monster Hunter Rise have not like noticed all of the UI improvements that video games have made over the years. I get that, things are just done differently in Japan. Fair enough. But it's so trash. It's so hard to use. A lot of the menus, I don't know if it's just a localization thing, or if it's just this way, but often like various menu options will be named really similarly. So you'll go to one and it won't have the information you need, and you have to go to the other one. Sometimes neither of them will have the information you need, because actually the information is in an entirely different menu option that doesn't even seem like it's anything like what you're after. The other thing as well is I'm playing on PC and I'm playing with a mouse and keyboard because I'm playing a bow character and I want to be able to aim easier. The keyboard controls leave a lot to be desired. They, now that I understand them, they are serviceable. I can play the game and I can understand how my character plays. A weird note is that right from default, they use the fourth and fifth button on my mouse, like without me changing anything, which
Hmm.
is a bold move, right? Because I don't know how the game works without that.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
yeah.
don't know if it defaults to something else or something. I don't know.
Because that tends to be, I'll rebind Control and Shift or something to those buttons so that
Right.
I just don't have to use my little feet. You get it.
Yeah. Sorry for anyone who's tuning into the audio version of the podcast. Jonas and I are both currently clearing out colds, so there may be brief breaks for coughing segments. Yeah, its control scheme on keyboard is weird because it has things that obviously, like, you'll use a certain resource like the wire bugs with one key in a certain way, but then if you're doing another thing that also uses the wire bugs, you'll use a different set of keys. And this is because the way that they've overlapped mechanics means that on a keyboard it doesn't make sense for them all to use the same set of keys. But as a learning experience, it's quite difficult because it means that every new mechanic you learn, you have to learn a whole new set of skills. You're not just building on what you already have. And this was my complaint about Elden Ring as well, and it's my general complaint about Japanese games that seem to use this strategy to teach you games. It's just obscure as fuck to learn basic things in this game without going into like a manual. Basically, it will give you like information boxes that explain something that will be written in a way that's not particularly easy to pass and won't give you all of the information, or it won't tell you why a thing is important. And then 20 minutes later it will be important, but you won't remember what you read in an obscure text box that came up just totally like independent of the actual thing that you were doing. I think that it still has a long way to go in terms of usability, but in terms of a game, it's good fun. I think it's a really fun multiplayer game. I couldn't see myself playing it single player unless, as you said, I was playing it on a handheld, because it feels kind of like, you know, the clicker equivalent of like, you know how clickers are just like the economic part of an economic game and nothing else, right? This feels like the boss fight part of an action game and nothing else,
Sure,
right?
sure.
Like they've distilled one part of a game that people love into a whole game and
Yeah,
just
that's
stripped
what
everything
Monster
out of the
Hunter
top
has
of it.
been.
Right?
And you know, Monster Hunter has classically been like a DS and a 3DS game before it's been a home console Wii U or Switch game, you know, or PC game.
Yeah.
World was the first one to even come to the PlayStation and Xbox.
Yeah.
Everything else has been pretty much Nintendo locked up until that point.
And
Um,
I can see
yeah,
why it would be better on the Switch, right? Because the game loop is, you know, 15 minutes, 20 minutes ish for a thing. You know, a bus ride where you just beat the shit out of a big monster. That's probably the way to play. I can't imagine me putting aside like other games I play on my PC to load up like Monster Hunter, get through all the horrible menus and things like that, just to play a 20-minute boss fight on my own. But on a
I
train, I would.
I've genuinely really I enjoy the boss fight loop quite a lot. I really like, you know, I really like kind of the hunting for materials to get the materials to craft the new thing. Once
Mm.
I've got the new thing, I can go beat up that monster again, but take less damage, deal more damage, have more kind of like strategy and confidence against that monster. You know, I'm at a point now in Monster Hunter Rise where I can fight all of the monsters that came in the base game with a genuine amount of like familiarity, confidence, and strategy. And I enjoy that mastery of the game.
Mm.
I think that's quite fun. But I think a lot of that appeals to the same part of me that appeals to like fighting games and things like that,
Mm.
which is like learning a move set, learning a dance or a routine or a strategy, and putting it to play in kind of fast, frenetic inputs and results. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that for me, the thing that stops me from playing it as a single player game is it feels like it's um you know, the progression in it is for the sake of just continuing to do what you were doing all along, right? You fight bosses so that you can fight bosses, so you can fight bosses, so you can fight bosses, and that to me is a really great thing for a handheld or a more casual game, right? Where you know, it's fun to see number go up, but it's also a short gameplay experience that can be held, so you can have the fun of the boss fight. Those central chunks of game, the boss fights, feel a lot bigger in a smaller play session, right? I can't see myself like grinding, like we did one of the explore things where we wandered around and mined ore nodes and shit like that. That felt like one of the dullest things in the world, and that was basically just me going around collecting rocks so that I can, like, you know, do the bit that's actually good about the game slightly better. And I'd
No,
rather just do the bit that's actually good about the game more often.
I know what you mean. And that is relevant to what I'll talk about later as well, which is
Cool.
quite interesting.
Well,
I
should we? Oh, sorry. If you.
I have just a genuine question, which is, do you give a shit about any of the monsters? Like, are they cool to fight? Do any of them have cool designs?
The 1-star monsters, I was like, they look nice, but whatever.
Who gives a shit?
The first 2-star monster we did was like a big bat monkey thing,
Yeah.
and it was like doing fucking capoeira. It was breakdancing and shit all over the place. I was like, oh, this is genuinely interesting, right? This is actually
Yeah.
making me do something rather than just stand near its head and fire arrows into its head. I got to think about where I stand. Shooting the things out of its hand is useful and stuff like that. I'm actually doing something now. And that started to make me feel like, oh yeah, I could come back every week and have like a monster, like do 3 or 4 boss fights every week on a Monday night. That would be pretty fun. I couldn't see myself. I don't think it's good enough for me to go, oh, I can't wait to see the next one so much. I'm going to spend an hour wandering around a field hitting rocks.
Fair enough. I think I think for a lot of people the appeal as well is like the fights, but those early fights really don't do anything. They're really to help you understand basic hit monster, dodge attack. Oh, that bit is weak. I should hit that more often. That sort of stuff.
Yeah, and it wears the clothes of some things that I really like, and I've only just started it, so I'm interested to see what comes up more out of it. But the idea of preparing, like thinking about what you're going up against, so maybe wearing different armor, or the bow character that I'm playing, you can coat your weapons in different things and stuff like that. Like this idea of the sort of Witcher thing of thinking about what you're going to do and
the
planning ahead for that appeals to me quite a lot. I think that will be a fun aspect of it. I'm imagining what it will be. I can't review it yet, saying I've done that yet. I don't know if it'll be good, but I can imagine what that would be.
Okay, cool. Keen to hear more as you play it, but I'm sure we'll have those conversations off mic.
Offline. No one needs to hear our filthy monster conversations.
Exactly.
All right, shall we move on to some reviews, shall we?
Well, yeah, I guess if we've got nothing else to gush about, I guess we'll talk about these shows that we prepared.
Oh, I'm gonna be doing some gushing. I'm gonna be doing some gushing.
You gonna gush,
and then some not gushing. What's the opposite of gushing? Sucking.
Oh God. Drying. I don't know.
I'm going to be drying up later, but for now, it's your TV review, Jonas. What are you reviewing this month?
Yeah, so I'm going to be talking about a TV show called The Patient. Some content warnings for The Patient. There is kidnapping. There's quite a graphic murder, a hostage situation throughout the show, and just general violence. And this show is a lot about the psychology of a serial killer. So obviously, if you think that any of that would be disturbing or you would be sensitive to any of those things, please do perhaps just research a bit more thoroughly what this show is before you dive in. That said, The Patient, it's a show on Disney Plus. It's a Disney Plus original series. Alan Strauss, who is played by Steve Carell, is a psychotherapist and is kidnapped by one of his own patients, Sam, a serial killer. Sam is played by Domhnall Gleeson. Domhnall Gleeson, quite a funny one that. Who demands that this serial killer demands that Alan gives him therapy to stop him from killing again. And I think, simply The Patient is an exploration of like quite a simple concept. What if a serial killer wanted to get better, but didn't want to get caught? They don't want to turn themselves in. He's not looking to be incarcerated. He's looking to be essentially cured of his violent impulses. And he thinks that therapy will work. And so he kidnaps his therapist. Sam, our serial killer, is presented as like an intelligent and bright young man who seems self-aware of how others kind of perceive him, and he communicates with Alan with a sort of level-headedness that I think one might not expect from a rampant and violent murderer. Alan, on the other hand, is an intelligent individual and far more emotionally mature. His work requires him to empathize and connect with those around him, something that is made slightly more difficult once he becomes the victim of a kidnapping. The patient is deeply rooted in this relationship between Alan and Sam. There's this constantly acknowledged threat that Sam could just kill Alan at any time, and whether or not Alan feels if escape or cooperation is the best option available to him at any given time. How the two communicate with each other about their current circumstances and potential futures is just a really big part of how that relationship between the two kind of grows. The narrative, the focus of the patient kind of weaves in and out of each character's past and present, building on who they are, what led to this moment in both of their lives, and their personal relationships with each other. And with every weave, we always return to the patient doctor or hostage kidnapper relationship happening sort of in the current timeline narrative between Sam and Alan. Now, there are really incredible plot points that do occur throughout this show. It's 10 episodes long, with every episode being 30 minutes. But it's hard to talk about those elements because there's a lot of mystery that unfolds throughout the show as Alan starts to learn more about his kidnapper, Sam's values, his MO as a murderer, his relationship to those that he has killed, and I guess more importantly, his relationship to people that he hasn't killed. There's a compelling drive to understand both Alan and Sam more as we're shown bits and pieces of their lives and personalities and relationships to people around them. This was a show that I just clicked on it because it had Steve Carell and it was on the front page of Disney Plus, and I thought, why not? And I was just so pleasantly charmed by how captivating and well presented this show was, not just as a concept, but actually genuinely in execution, in performance, and just in sort of like, you know, narrative design. It tells a succinct story, and it ends when it ends. I don't think there's any need to look forward to a Patient season 2. I highly recommend this show. I think it's pretty good, especially given that it seems to be a bit of a sleeper hit in my estimation. Jamie, have you heard about The Patient? You seen it on any pictures? Steve
No.
Carell?
No, I hadn't heard anything about it, but it sounds right up my alley. It sounds great. I love a bit of, like, you know, weird serial killery stuff. In terms of, like, yeah, obviously I know that it's about murder and it's about a hostage situation, but how dark is it? Like, is there levity to it, or is it just a real grim slog?
The levity, there were some really interesting moments where I kind of found myself laughing. I kind of found myself finding the situation to be quite funny. But the camera is looking at Alan's face, the hostage, who is chained to a bed and coming to grips with the idea that he may not escape this situation alive. And Sam will do or say something, and objectively it's very funny, but when you take into context the larger picture of like the situation, it's really quite, you know, it's really quite disheartening and sad. But I think it does have light moments, right? Sam's character has like strange world views and personality quirks that in isolation are really quite funny to analyze and talk about. There is levity, there is comedy in the writing, but the characters don't perceive that. You do, the viewer. It's comedic to you, not to them.
Okay.
But it is just you know, to clarify, on the whole, yeah, it is quite dark. Like,
Okay.
it's not slapstick about the situation. It's not ha 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 kind of will he won't he kill that person. Um it's a bit more edge of your seat, kind of thriller-esque in how it's navigating this shallow ice of a situation, right?
Okay. And in terms of the sort of portrayal of Sam, I'm not going to suggest that you know many serial killers, but does he feel believable as a serial killer, or does he feel like a TV serial killer?
I think he feels believable. I think the patient tries to do a really honest, and earnest attempt to present. You could have slapped based on real life events at the beginning of this show, and I would believe you,
Hmm.
because Sam's motivations for killing people is plausible in the universe, right? Like, he's not ridiculous about it, and he's not doing like gratuitous, like, I take my victims and I skin them and I wrap their skin around a loaf of bread and then I leave it in a bakery for people to discover. No, no, no. It's not like ham-fisted like that at all. It's just like, what if what if a human being had the compulsion to kill, had managed to get away with it several times, and now lived this life? This is how he lives. This is the home. This is the situation. These are the relationships that he has. And everything is just quite kind of, meticulously designed to feel genuine, to feel like a real threat, to feel like a real story.
Cool. So, um, Alan, the therapist, you know, there's been a lot of therapy in TV shows over the years, TV shows and movies, and they vary in how real maybe is the best word for it, but like how sort of sympathetic to the idea of therapy they tend to be, right? Like some shows sort of portray it as like a magic bullet, some portray it as like a sort of person getting into your head and shaking you around. Does it feel nuanced? Does it, or does it feel like it's got an understanding of how therapy works, or is it, or is it that sort of like, leaning on it as a sort of theme for exploring ideas rather than an actual sort of, rather than actually being therapy kind of thing?
Um, it's it's a hard one to answer. You may find this hard to believe, but I personally have not experienced a professional therapist. At
No,
least not as an adult. I might have as a child, but I don't remember it. There you go. But the way that the
that's a
show,
rabbit hole to dive down right there.
yeah, but let's keep talking about the
We're
patient.
going back to
Um,
trapped toddler.
oh God, not again. No, Alan Strauss, Steve Carell. He does an incredible job of playing a a sort of middle-aged man who is incredibly well educated, has a lot of like not self-confidence, but is comfortable. Does that make
Mm.
sense? Like,
Yeah, yeah.
he is just self-assured. And as a professional therapist, he is presented with this ability to kind of start meaningful conversations that are meant to prompt like assessment, like self-assessment, self-discovery, change, that kind of thing, where he asks you questions not because he wants to know the answer necessarily, but because he thinks it would be a good idea for you to answer the question to yourself.
Yeah.
And so a lot of, but of course, Alan is also not a psychotherapist in his office. He's a psychotherapist chained to a fucking bed, and he
Yeah.
wants to go home. So a lot of the show, a lot of that relationship, a lot of this idea that he has to give therapy to this serial killer is constantly undermined by the fact that he at all times feels threatened. And he constantly addresses this. He says, I can't actually give you therapy when I am under duress, when this is not a safe environment for me. You can't expect me to do the job you think I can do under these circumstances. And when he does attempt to try to do that job, it's, I suppose it's every conversation tries to open up a little bit more of Sam, but some of it's obviously in service to us as an audience, right? Like, this is a
Mm.
show being written. So Sam doesn't waste dialogue, doesn't repeat points. Sam doesn't sit there and say completely mundane things. The writing allows him to go into some detail about him, but that just fleshes him out as a character. I think it's all been designed. Every conversation is designed to obviously build up a story and a piece of entertainment. And I simply think that, in reality, a real therapy session is never going to have the entertainment value that a show wants it to have.
No, that's true, but there I think that there's still an element to it, which is like sort of portraying therapists as, empathetic and curious, and portraying therapy not as like a silver bullet that unlocks you, but also not as like an antagonistic thing that tries to break you down and kind of stuff. And I think that's a nuance that shows have gotten better at dealing with in recent years. It's no longer like either white coats, like tied up in a padded cell, or like, crying in a like a perfect moment where they get you to draw your father and suddenly everything breaks open. There's an understanding of what it's for and what it does. And
Yeah.
it sounds like they have a bit of understanding of this. I mean, it sounds like, because it's so core to what it is.
I think the show is well researched and well written, in a lot of aspects. One thing I haven't mentioned in the review, but it is important to Alan's character. Alan is Jewish, is Jewish, sorry, and is the father of two children. His son becomes an Orthodox Jew, while Alan's wife and Alan's daughter do not. And as we discover Alan's past, we discover that Alan is incredibly alienated from his son as a result of this differing in their religious practices, and the fact that his son decides to become an Orthodox Jew completely alienates the family, and it completely changes their relationship dynamic. I have to stop to cough. I will get a water in a minute. And that part of the show feels incredibly well researched, very familiar. It's not obnoxiously like Hollywood kind of, oh, that character's Jewish, so we make him wear the hat and we make him say Mazel Tov, and everyone knows he's Jewish. Yay! It really spends time exploring Alan's family history and Alan's childhood, and the moment that he raised, the moment his children were born, and the moment his son, displayed a love for a form of, like Jewish religion and celebration that was different to his father's. And all of that it's built up so that we can help understand where Alan is coming from, emotionally, and like, so, his own psychology. When he tries to talk about Sam's relationship to his parents, Alan is a parent, Alan is a father, and kind of ends up filling a lot of those gaps. You can understand that when he doesn't know something about Sam and his relationship with his parents, we then see a glimpse of what Alan kind of would fill those gaps with, based on his personal experience, based on his family relationships. And that just feels incredibly well presented, honestly. It's a show that I think it doesn't do a lot wrong, to be honest. I think that's kind of the best thing I can say for it is, it feels like it's not, I don't know if playing it safe is the right word, but what it does just kind of just right, like perfectly in the lines. And within that, I think it ends up basically creating just a really good piece of entertainment.
Great. I mean, it sounds great. I think I'm on board. I think I'm gonna, if I can find the time, I'm definitely gonna be watching it. All right. Well, Jonas, you wake up and you're tied to a bed, chained to a bed, and
I'm a trapped toddler again.
you're a fully grown man now. You're
Okay.
a therapist, but a therapist that cures with 1-sentence reviews. And a man comes up to you and he says, I'm gonna Netflix randomize again. I'm gonna ruin a life with a Netflix randomizer unless you cure me with a 1-sentence review of the patient. I guess it doesn't really matter what the review is of, but I guess since we're talking about it, the patient will probably do.
Okay. I just want to preface my review by just saying, the stakes don't sound particularly high here, but
I
you
mean,
want me to give it a go, so I'll give it a go.
you've seen the consequences of bad randomizers, Jonas. You know it ruins lives.
I saw one
People never
yesterday.
recover from that.
I think the patient is, for all its complexity, an incredibly clean and entertaining product.
Cool. Wow. He releases you and he never randomizes again. He's fully cured. As I
Wow.
imagine the patient ends in a similar way.
Yeah, no. Just he
Fully
just
cured.
drops a one-line review and walks out the front door. There you go. You don't need to watch the show now. Thanks.
Nice.
Yeah. Mind if we take a break for me to get some water?
I was just about to suggest that. Okay. This is
Thanks.
not an official break in terms of the stream or in
just gonna
terms of the
go, yeah.
podcast. We'll come back as if we were there, and I'm going to quickly go pee. So I'm going to put you on a break on the video. I'll be back in a moment, everyone. Is that we all share the nuts. So if Stu takes an executive decision to nut all over these birds in the cave, then that's half our nuts gone. I'm doing everything I can to lose all responsibility through incompetence.
Now I understand why Captain Hook was the way he was.
Again, democracy has failed.
Annoyed. Gay and annoyed.
He settled in front of me. He sat down.
Oh, happiness, but the tale of maybe not
Yeah,
happiness.
your mouse pad is so hairy.
Yeah, it is.
Oh, this is Civ 4.
Oh.
Wait, what? Oh my god, it is! Oh my. Oh. Man, he's just been playing Sim 4 this
I'm
whole
beyond
time.
useless.
It is now.
TikTok, it's 4 o'clock. Stream back on. Hello, everybody. We're back. What distinguishes this unofficial break from an official break in terms of the viewer experience? The difference is that I'm going to start talking like I never stopped talking. And that's the difference. Okay. Right. All right. Well, it's time for my TV show of the month, and I am talking about a show that I mentioned basically constantly in last month's episode, but I'm actually talking about it now. I've seen the first 6 episodes. I think there's 7 or 8 out now, so I'm a little behind reality, but I think I'm still ready to talk about it. That's right, I'm talking about The Last of Us, HBO's brand new big budget video game adaptation starring Pedro Pascal and Bella Ramsey. It's set in a world where the world has been hit with a deadly fungal pandemic. I'm not sure if that's the correct term, but that's basically what it is. A fungus mutates to take over human beings and spread itself through zombie-like aggression. Society crumbles, and 20 years later, Joel, played by Pascal, is scraping by in the world that's left over. He encounters Ellie, a girl who seems to be resistant to the fungus, and is convinced reluctantly to escort her to a group who can hopefully work out why that's the case. I expected good things from The Last of Us. It had so much hype, and since I started watching after a few episodes were already out, significant, decent feedback already as well. And despite this, I still end up surprised as to just how good it is. As with most zombie apocalypse shows, the zombies are a backdrop to human dramas. The Last of Us uses that not just to explore the explicit conflict and societal breakdown inherent in those situations, but to create deep and nuanced stories about minorities and real societal failings. The most lauded episode so far, episode 3, features an absolutely stunning and heartbreaking LGBT storyline that is everything we've been asking for from those kind of things. A plot that doesn't treat being gay as noteworthy enough to push out all other ideas, but a love story that understands and explores the nuances and differences inherent in the LGBT experience. But woven throughout the show are nuanced and sensitive portrayals of disabled people, aging people, people of different races and backgrounds. Every episode, while part of a larger story, feels like a vignette. Characters come and go, often for no longer than an episode, but they help give a deeper understanding of what it's like to be in this world for many different kinds of people. The Last of Us isn't a show about zombies or fungally infected people or whatever. It's a show about minorities. The infected barely appear in most episodes, but feel like a constant threat, like one wrong move could be the end of you, like standing out or seeming different could be the end of your life. So far, The Last of Us has blown me away. Its storytelling is not just better than any video game adaptation ever deserved to be, but better than most other things on TV. It's well paced, it's deep with nuance and character, it's genuinely funny and sad in like heavy measures. And all of this is held together by an absolutely stellar cast. The Last of Us is the definition of no small roles. The side characters that come and go are each as deep and well drawn as the last. The actors that play them give them incredible life and subtlety, with special mention going to Nick Offerman's mesmerizing performance as Bill. The core pairing, though, Pedro Pascal and Bella Ramsey, are as good as it gets. You can see every inch of pain in Joel's life in every action he takes. His melding of broken man and deeply caring father is so powerful. And Ramsey makes Ellie someone you can't help but care deeply for. She's equal parts naive and courageous, and Ramsey pulls it all together to create a character that is memorable and lovable. The Last of Us will probably go down as the best live-action video game adaptation ever, and I think it's also likely to go down as one of the best TV shows ever too. Jonas, how much have you seen?
Yeah, I recently saw that episode 3.
Mm?
It's a good episode.
It's a good episode.
Good episode. Fun fact, by the way, you know how we reviewed and both seen The White Lotus?
Yeah.
The hotel manager from season 1 is who plays Frank.
Yes. Yeah.
And yeah, like, man, what a just incredible portrayal of two people falling in love at the end of the world, surviving through it, caring for each other, and just also it's such an incredible example of how you can take something that already exists, like The Last of Us, and you can still find stories to tell in that world, where those stories were because The Last of Us, you play that game purely through the perspective of Joel and Ellie. Well, Joel, actually, you just play the whole game as most of the game through Joel. You don't see other people in the world unless Joel sees them, unless Joel is spending time with them. So when you want to learn about the world, it just does that video game thing of you picking up notes or reading books or audio logs, whatever. But this show has obviously it's taken the liberty. It's decided that these stories are definitely worth telling, not through Joel's perspective, but just through their own perspectives, through their own narratives, through their own sort of just as their own experiences for the audience to enjoy. And taking that liberty with Bill and Frank was fucking hell. Damn good move. Damn good move.
What are they like in the game? Because I've not played the game.
If I remember correctly, because it's 10 years old, the game. I don't know how much of this I remember. I think in the game, you go to that town and the town is not safe, but Bill has set up tripwires and defenses all around town. So your whole job is to get to Bill's house,
right,
while fighting through the infected and traps. There, I believe Bill is there. He's alive. He offers you help. You have to do something for him, and then he offers you a truck. And I believe he dies in a last stand moment.
right.
But that's my very iffy memory of trying to think. I'm sure Bill was alive, but I don't think we left him alive. So what would have happened? I think it was a last stand thing. Whereas obviously the show decides to basically just tell its own story and approach that scenario in its own way, but still feels incredibly genuine.
But I think that really exemplifies what they've done with this show, which
Yeah.
is that people always talk about how hard it is to adapt, especially action games and especially shooter games into TV shows, in the or movies. In that a large chunk of the the gameplay experience in those games is shooting your way through corridors of people, and that, unless you're John Wick, isn't that fun to watch, right? You need a plot in there, right? You need something interesting. And so many people said, oh well, Last of Us is an incredible story rich experience, so that's why it's doing so good. But I don't think that's the case. I think that what the case is that they've taken The Last of Us, its setting and a lot of its elements, and they've gone, what are the bits that really resonate? Let's exemplify them. And what are the bits that we can tell really interesting stories in this world that are kind of nothing to do with what happened in the game? The Bill and Frank story, the way that is different, right? I don't want to spoil anything. I don't want to say what happens, but the way that it's significantly different, it is such a great story. It really sets a tone for the world that they're in, and people's relationships to those things, and it really helps to build this feeling the show has, this sort of it's metaphor. All sci-fi, especially apocalypse sci-fi, are metaphors for the problems that are in our society, but this handles that stuff so like just perfectly and beautifully and fragilely in a way that I haven't played The Last of Us. I can't say that it doesn't do this, but I don't think it does it in that same like beautiful, fragile way.
So interestingly, what I've found in the first 3 episodes is everything that's likable about Joel and Ellie, every scene that is well written between those two characters, every little bit of dialogue that just makes you fall in love with them both individually, but also as a pairing more, all present in the game. The game absolutely nailed those moments, and that is why people are so confident that the success of the show must be the success of the game, right? Because the game did that really well. It absolutely nailed those elements. But I think, what those people fail to appreciate or may not realize is actually, this show is 100% not only nailing what the game did well in that relationship, but it's taking those liberties to enhance upon what the game couldn't do, what it couldn't present, the stories it couldn't tell meaningfully. And again, I'm only really saying that from having watched episode 1, 2, 3. But episode 1 has such a more intimate and fleshed out relationship between Joel and Sarah that you have that moment in the game, and it's obviously a little bit more streamlined because it kind of just wants, you can't waste a player's time. They need to get to the gameplay. They need to play the video game, and games that don't respect that tend to get shat on for not doing that.
Yeah, as we will do later on in this episode.
Sure, okay. And but the show really gets to kind of flesh that out because you're there for the story. It's all about the experience. It's all about the cinematics being presented to you. And that first episode is so long. It's like an hour and a half. It's a film length long. But it uses that time to really build up what this, the right pieces in the right way with the right pacing and the right kind of attention to detail and things like that. It's just very well paced, I think. Episode 2 has that entire kind of story in Indonesia that isn't, none of that is in the video game 100% full stop, but it is such a good way of being like, this is a pandemic show, this is an apocalypse show, let's tell some stories about this apocalypse, about this world, about the perspectives of people who were there when it happened and the perspectives of people who lived through it as it was happening. Let's visit those moments just a little bit because there are really fascinating stories that we can tell in that universe. And again, really good use of just like diversity and different world perspectives and different life perspectives.
Yeah. I mean, this is a core thing to the TV show. It is that it has something to say. You know, it is a really interesting, enjoyable driving story. There is no doubt about that, right? The story of the way that Joel and Ellie, you know, travel through the world and the things they encounter is great. But on below that level, right, there is it has something to say about the experience of a lot of people in the world, right? This idea that you almost never see the infected, right? That the main threats are usually fascists and bigots, right? And this idea that, you know, at any moment someone could find out something about you and that would be a reason to kill you, right? You know, like all these little things. It is clearly someone who it is clearly written in a way that it's a whole thing. It's a complete idea, independent from its origins, and I think that's great. I think it's you know, it's exactly what we want from adaptations. It's its own thing that feels like it comes from its origin thing, but it, you know, it's Cyberpunk Edge Runners. You know, it's Arcane, right? It's all these things that feel so heavily like they come from where their sort of origins are, but they're their own thing, and they leave you with a new appreciation for that world, or its own story or something else. I think that this show could remove The Last of Us from the title, and it would still be just as good a show. And I think that's a real mark in its favor. I think it's you know, it's doing brilliant stuff. Yeah, I don't know what more to say about it. I like, you know, I like, if we were spoiling things, I could gush about, you know, the future characters you encounter and various specific moments that you encounter that just, you know, struck me as really clever. Really, it just does so many things that are clever and subtle and beautiful, that do double duties of, you know, driving the plot forwards and also building this feeling of like being under threat for things about you. And like I you know, but I just have to just watch it. Just everyone should watch it and just see it and experience it.
Does this make you want to play the game at all?
Partially, but I think that the thing about it is, you know, early on when I first started watching the first episode, and actually when I first started writing notes for this review, I was thinking about like how in the first episode you can see moments that you could imagine being in the game, right? Like they're running away from something and something blocks the path behind them, so they have to go forward. And you can imagine that moment in a story-driven action game where something stops you from returning the way you've come, so you've got to go on to the next section or whatever. There's like a moment where Joel picks up a gun from the ground, and you can imagine that being the moment where you get that gun in the game, right? Or, you know, all sorts of moments like that, little bits. And I thought I was going to come into this being like, it's a show that you can see its game roots, but it still manages to be a good show. And what I actually now feel like 6 episodes in is it's a really beautiful show about you know, a really beautiful sci-fi show about the minority experience in society, using the sort of zombie aesthetic as a metaphor for this thing that also comes from a video game. and so I feel like if I went back and I played the video game, I'd be like, what's all these bloody zombies doing all over the place? Where's my heartfelt gay story? Right? Like, yeah.
You'd be surprised at some of at how I think you've actually. I do know what you mean. I think you've slightly misinterpreted some of the elements that you saw in the show as being, oh, that's a game mechanic, right? The bit in episode 1 where there's a lot of cutting off of paths, you don't have player control whatsoever. So that's 1-for-1. Those are just cutscenes that they've just filmed, right? So that's not mechanically stopping you from going down an alleyway or stopping you from going left. No. That's just how they wrote it in the game, because the scenario's fucked up.
Yeah.
And then the bit, you know, you pick up that picks up that gun right
Mm.
at that moment. Don't think you actually get to fire that gun in the game.
Right. Okay.
I think it comes up with a reason as to why you can't, or he uses it later in a cutscene or gives it to Tess and you don't play Tess.
Yeah.
Something like that. What I think the show does really well is it's got this really big emphasis on how the backpack is your lifesaver, right? Like your rucksack is your lifeline. Everything is in your rucksack, and characters make a really big they kind of make a gesture of swinging the back off their ground, kneeling down on the ground, unzipping the bag, and reaching in and pulling the thing that they need out.
Mm.
And that's very homage to the video game, because that is the inventory menu, is you reaching down and pulling out your bag. And just the kind of the verticality of the buildings, like how the characters are always using verticality in buildings and in cities and things like that. That's very reminiscent of the video games.
But back to your original question, which is, does this make me want to play the game?
Yeah.
I get I get that from everything everyone said, that this is a really great adaptation on a on a feel level, right? Like, it looks like it should, it feels like it should, it feels like the world that people know, and the stories that have been translated really well. But this is a great experience for me, and I don't know if playing it would give me anything else. Maybe it would, but I don't have that urge in me to be like, and now I've got to play the story. If you see what I mean? Yeah.
I know what you mean. The game is good because it's a good AAA prestige video game. It manages to blend incredible narrative, incredible cutscenes with thoughtful gameplay sequences that are a blend of minor puzzle solving, minor action sequence, and minor stealth/navigation sequences. And always they weave those four things together: cutscene, puzzle, combat, cutscene, stealth section, action, cutscene. It just weaves in and out of those things really well. Whereas the show is obviously just it's pure narrative, pure story, pure cinematics, and it's good. So why would you need to pick up a controller and run up those 35 floors? I realize I did watch episode 4. Run up those 35 floors in episode 4. You don't need to pick up a controller and do that. You can watch Pedro Pascal act out that scene incredibly well and still love the result.
I know the game is great. I know it is, because
Yeah.
everyone says it's great, right? It's not like I'm saying that I don't think it's a good game. But I have a lot of other good games I play on a regular basis,
absolutely,
right?
Absolutely,
and nothing about it has made me think this is a game that will change my life, right? The thing that everyone loves about it, the gameplay is supposedly great, but the thing that everyone loves about it, and the thing everyone always talks about, is the story. And I'm getting that in a format that, really works for me. This show is so good. So I'm happy. I'm cool with that. And Last of Us is about to come out on PC. They're about to do has come out on PC, actually, I think. So maybe I'll push myself to play it, just for out of interest from this conversation, and we can do a chat about that at some point in the future. But if I didn't do a podcast on this stuff, I don't think I would push myself to play it. Really.
No, fair enough. And I'm not saying you should. That is very clear. I'm not recommending that you now go play the game. But it is interesting, given that we talked about Arcane, given that we talked about Cyberpunk Edgerunners, given that we talk about video game adaptations and how one tends to be marketing for the other, or one tends to be a tie-in for the other. This isn't a tie-in. This is almost a replacement. And that's just interesting. That is an interesting product, because no replacement has ever been as well critically received as The Last of Us.
I guess let me put it this way. When I watched Cyberpunk Edgerunners, one of the really cool things about that show was that it made that video game feel alive for me, right? The world that video game was set in, it made it feel properly alive, right? I could see stories in this world. The Last of Us, like, doesn't need the game at all, right? It's not about making a video game world feel alive. It's about making its world feel alive, which happens to also be the same world in the video game.
Yeah.
And maybe that's just because I haven't played the game, but that's how it feels to me.
Yeah, I think I think you are right. If this was a show that took place in a different city with different characters, with different narrative hooks, then it would be a tie-in and it would be in service of lifting the game world up. But it's not. So the nearest thing I can call it is a replacement, and a fucking great one.
I think it could be, Terry and Jess, and it could be a fish-based Parasite or something. I don't know. It could be different in a lot of ways, in a lot of the rote ways of the world, and still be as good as it is now. It doesn't have to be The Last of Us to be this good. So I think I think that what makes Cyberpunk good is it is Cyberpunk.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah, this is an interesting conversation, but I'm interested to see how it goes, and I think it'll be a good rewind when we get to the end of it to just catch up on it.
When we've both finished it, definitely, I'd love to talk about it some more. Jamie, you are a survivor in a fungus zombie world apocalypse, and you appear to be resistant to the fungus. You've been bitten by one of these things, and it doesn't seem to have killed you. With this knowledge, what few scientists remain in this world are desperately trying to find a vaccine, a cure to the fungus zombie outbreak. And they realize that the answer is inside you. But it's not what everyone thinks it is. It's not something in your blood. It's not something in your immune system. What you have inside you is a one-sentence review of the TV show The Last of Us on HBO. And if someone could just extract it from you, if you could just give it to these scientists, there's a chance of saving our world. And Pedro Pascal will be there every single step of the way to deliver that one-sentence review. And when you get there, presumably in whatever the last episode of this show is, let's assume, what do you say?
Better than a video game adaptation.
And with that, the timeline is rewritten. The Last of Us 2, the video game, ceases to exist because you've cured the world of fungus zombies.
Huzzah! Get fucked, fungus. All right, that was The Last of Us. We're going to move on to, we're going to have a break, but before that, we're going to talk about, Jonas, you've been watching Atlanta.
Yeah, do you know what Atlanta is? Like the show?
So it's been on my list to watch for a very long time. I've just not got around to it. It's the Donald Glover one, right?
Yeah, so Donald Glover, and obviously a number of other creators, but Donald Glover's the one that I know the name of, writes and creates this really... It's an interesting show. So it's a show that's largely about Black culture, right? It's about a number of different Black people that all live in Atlanta. One's a rapper, one's like a woke philosopher, like druggie dealer. Donald Glover just plays like a guy who's he's just trying to find success, and he's a little bit calmer and more intelligent and like educated than a lot of the people around him. And he's just trying to kind of get by in this environment, in this world. And Atlanta is kind of painted as like a slightly more surreal version of itself. So weird events happen in this show. Like the whole show is a portrayal of, Black communities and Black culture and just the daily lives of Black people in Atlanta that they're not wealthy, not all of them are well educated, not all of them are well off. Lots of people trying to find success in daily opportunities, and a lot of people just trying to find daily opportunities because nothing else is there for them. And this show takes those little moments from these different characters, these moments of either desperation or these chance encounters, and turns them all into like surrealist escapades. One episode, like a rapper will go to get his hair cut, but his barber will spend the whole day leading him on a wild goose chase of different dodgy, surreal, like non-truthful encounters. In another episode, Donald Glover like will ride a bus, and a man in a suit will cross over from the bus and sit next to him and tell him to take a bite of this Nutella sandwich that he just made on the bus. It's like it's surreal in the way that genuinely impossible events happen, but they are sprinkled subtly throughout episodes. There is a running narrative that is genuinely quite interesting. All the characters are really interesting. There is a world that is being built up with its own lore, with its own truths and lies and established characters and things like that. And yeah, it's just, you know, where it begins, like where the truth begins and where the kind of like the surrealness and absurdity ends is quite hard to tell with this show. I think very inspired by Twin Peaks in that way.
Right.
It's kind of a really fascinating piece of media. I think especially on the Black culture kind of side of things, I think there's not as popular a show, I think, that kind of like presents a lot of like Black culture kind of tropes and like laws and etiquettes and things like that as cleanly and as professionally as this does, with so much confidence and so much to present to you that you will have never seen before, especially as we are a UK audience watching American cultures like kind of mix together and intertwine. It's a really fascinating show, and I think I'm going to talk a lot more about it in the future.
Okay, well, I'll see if I can watch some of it and get through it. Yeah, I've only ever heard good things, so I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to take a brief break, and when we come back, we'll be talking about games. We're going to be talking about Wild Hearts and Atomic Heart. We're going to be talking about movies. There's Sound of Metal and Who Framed Roger Rabbit. And, of course, we'll be back with our Netflix randomizer movie of the month, which is Barbie as Princess and the Pauper. I'm sure you're excited to hear all about Barbie, as we are to talk about her. All right. We'll be back in a mo.
I liked you might have been waiting for me to say something, but I also just thought if I start saying something now, you're gonna like click the button or start clapping, and then we're gonna overlap, and then you're gonna be like, "Oh, sorry, and then we just
that was a
wouldn't know
good
what to do.
impression of me. Oh, sorry. I'm like C3PO.
I'm so sorry, Master
sorry.
Dennis. I did not mean to speak over you in
Did
the
not mean
podcast.
to speak, sir. I will never do it again, sir. Oh. I've always wanted to be as luscious as a horse. All right.
We all?
I'm gonna go grab a drink.
All right.
See you in a bit.
All right. See you in a bit.
Put the stream on break. See you in a mo, everyone. Is that we all share the nuts. So if Stu takes an executive decision to nut all over these birds in the cave, then that's half our nuts gone. I'm doing everything I can to lose all responsibility through incompetence.
Now I understand why Captain Hook was the way he was.
Again, democracy has failed.
Annoyed. Gay and annoyed.
He settled in front of me. He sat down.
Oh, happiness, but the tale of maybe not happiness.
Your mouse pad is so hairy.
Yeah, it is.
Oh, this is Civ 4.
Oh.
Wait, what? Oh my god, it is! Oh my. Oh. Man, he's call this
I'm
whole
beyond
time?
useless.
It is now.
TikTok, it's 4 o'clock. Oh my god! Oh fuck! Oh god damn it! Oh Jesus Christ!
I teach maths.
There we go. Oh. Oh god!
Wow! It was pathetic. She was making these gurgling sounds.
I'm a shower pisser, but I will not associate with the shower poopers.
Okay.
Goodbye, random forest woman.
I guess we'll never know.
Goodbye. Don't want to worry anyone, but we don't have a lot of wood. I saw wood. I saw wood. I've got the wood. I've got wood. Keep going. I've got some wood. Look at me cycling away. Here I go. Do it. So it's here, right? Now we're in a very menacing room full of gas canisters and blood. How delightful. Oops. Oh. Oh no. Oh, that's not good. Oh. Oh shit. Fucking hell. Oh my god. Every time. So we're dead man's fingering her, right?
Jesus.
Oh shit, I didn't mean to do that. Sorry. That's not, I didn't mean it to sound like that when I said it. You performed an act of terrorism outside of our house.
I know you didn't, but it still was said.
No. Oh. That was so close. I'll always be thinking about Barbie.
Okay.
No, Kate's dead.
Well, yeah, but I mean, this is such a dramatic storyline.
Police brutality.
Wow.
What? Oh, it's way sourer than I remember. Oh my god.
You're...
I'm the Great Destroyer.
Boris Johnson.
Borage Dungeon. Borage Dungeon build robot. I think Maddie's having a breakdown and she's supposed to be in charge of that.
I don't want excuses.
No, Jazz. Tricky.
The lettuce and a cheese on this one. Cheese on this one.
Stop pressing the goddamn button! Stop rotating the fucking thing! It's me all along. Oh no, they go by themselves! Yes, and I'll do it again. Oh my god! Look at it! Look at this slide!
Slide to that.
Look at these swings! Look at these swings! Oh my god. Oh. Oh god, it's been so long. I forgot how awful they were. Looks like something out of The Walking Dead.
Do you believe in apples, Miss Turner? You better, because you're in one.
I do. I just kind of slip inside you like a warm kitten.
And this is Fairy. He's never hit a man, but he likes to watch. And oh, sorry. Oh my god.
He does not look healthy.
He looks really ill. I need them. They're my medication.
Are you sure you're not having a stroke?
I want to blackmail Hitler because I think there's money in it.
Oh shit! No, don't keep attacking the dog. Oh no, the dogs are fighting. Beth, your dog killed Luke's dog.
My dog?
Oh!
I was about to say.
Oh my god! Oh my god! All this complaining, God, it's getting in the way of doing actual work. Ah! There's that Dory twin. Oh fuck! Jesus Christ! That is way worse than the last time. The spirits must be cleansed. Someone eating at their station?
No.
No.
Wildlife in this game is mental.
Yeah. They came right at me.
The fucking beginning.
Keep on trying. Should we exchange insurances now?
No,
Okay,
God,
bye.
God. I've got a
Alright.
feeling they don't have insurance.
Oh. Yeah. Fucking hell. Problem solved. Oh, her. Okay. Oh! No! Mr. Oh!
You had punched her. Nope. You literally punched her. Oh my.
Package.
What happened if they touch?
Ghostbusters?
Oh, there's another dude in me. In me.
When it said 35C there, and I was like, 35 Celsius? That's fucking warm.
No! 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 We see the light. No. all the rooms are 35 Celsius.
I was so...
Why?
Just for science.
I'm offering my next
You can.
Someone?
Are you gonna fire him out the cannon? No! Oh my god! The sword presents a secondary danger. Oh! Oh no!
Oh
So long, friend!
Why would that be a selling point?
It's
Who walked in there?
exclusively to lizard people.
I'm afraid so, man.
Extremely
Mind if we come in?
convinced.
Health, I need that health kit.
Wall's coming.
Oh my god.
Take my
Oh my god. No!
Take my metal.
I don't know if I'm actually gonna get this health kit in time. I had 1 health left.
Jesus Christ.
One kill. Oh, watch out! One kill.
Amazing.
And you got a screenshot as well from that.
You can never have too few guns in a gunfight.
You can never have too few guns. What about 0 guns? That's too few guns in a gunfight.
There's definitely too few guns. You can never have more.
Well, I died. Oh, drum roll. It barely started, I'm already getting murdered. Ah! Did you just blow me up? Just like first open, like a fucking comedy clown car or something. Oh,
Yeah.
jumps.
Jumped again.
I just realised that the drug lord was literally shouting at me in the day. I don't think I'd do well in a high pressure drug lord environment. I'd be dead in a heartbeat.
Oh! It was like...
Jesus! Oh my god!
I completely forgot about that. I completely and utterly forgot about that.
His name is Mr. Deliver. He will give what you can't.
No, I got this. Oh, you gotta be fucking kidding me. This is a masterclass, my friend.
Your kill was witnessed.
Oh fuck! Where the fuck did you come from?
Shoot him! Shoot him! Stop reloading!
I'm a cross-dressing sailor dominatrix who does the early shift.
I was not expecting that.
This is how the pros do it.
Please
Oh no!
No, 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 no. No, 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 no.
I would not.
Just trying to get a right bit. Oh!
Are you beating them to death?
No. This is how this is going now. This is how this game is played now. This is Silent Assassin's suit only. We start off by building.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back. All right, we're just going to run straight into it. We're just going to go. We're just going to get back to it. I know you know.
Let's
you don't
go.
listen,
Let's
but
go.
I'm
Pick
gonna
up the
do it
speed.
anyway. All right. Hello and welcome back. It's the game section. Jonas, what is your game this month?
My game this month is Wild Hearts, not to be confused with Sayonara Wild Hearts, which is a game I also really like. No, just Wild Hearts. Wild Hearts is a game recently released, published by EA, developed by W Omega Force, who make the Dynasty Warriors and sort of Warriors spin-off games, released on all the big stuff, you know, PS5, Xbox, PC, etc. In Wild Hearts, you play as a warrior who travels to a new land, and in this new land, there are giant beasts known as Kemono. You seem to have the ability to manipulate celestial thread, and you can craft karakuri, these devices that allow you to help fight these kimono. And instantly, I've avoided using the word monster or hunter, but this game does draw a lot of comparisons, would you believe it, to Monster Hunter. And I think that's absolutely on purpose. When it comes to the genre of game where you fight big thing, Monster Hunter is what I would sort of describe as like, it's the Pokemon of its own genre. It has very few real competitors. And generally, when a new challenger does appear, that challenger can improve on the gameplay mechanics and presentation in some way, but it will lack the built-up popularity and established content that the original series already kind of has built up over the years. Wild Hearts is the new challenger to Monster Hunter, and it's an earnest attempt to challenge Monster Hunter by offering a number of mechanical improvements whilst also establishing its own identity with the use of those devices I mentioned earlier, karakuri. Now, compared to Monster Hunter World, what Wild Hearts is, I'd say it's faster in gameplay. It spends less time kind of asking the player to commit to the preparation before a fight, if that makes sense. The crafting system is streamlined. You don't have to eat a meal, and each meal doesn't have a different buff before you go into battle. And there's less, I'd say there's generally less running around a hub world. And instead, it just kind of gets you into the fight faster and provides you with a more comprehensive introduction to its own mechanics, which, as you and I have discussed, is a known weakness of the Monster Hunter games. I think players who find themselves curious about Monster Hunter but find themselves put off by the learning curve and density of the systems might actually find Wild Hearts to kind of have a slight remedy to that problem. Now, where Wild Hearts is most definitely sort of excels is its own combat design. W Omega Force are veterans at making players feel unstoppable in combat. Flashy combat animations that look cinematic and feel good to perform are a huge part of what make the Warriors games so appealing. Wild Hearts brings that experience and curates it to more kind of like challenging encounters where mistakes are genuinely costly and result in you falling flat on your ass a dozen times. But success means completely eviscerating and toppling giant ferocious beasts with impact and style. There's a great selection of weapons, allowing you to find a playstyle that you enjoy. The monsters are all designed from a simple combination of an animal and some element, but the way they look, the way they move, the way they fight never fails to impress and intimidate. Not to mention the character creator and the armor crafting similar to Monster Hunter, allows you to create a character that kind of looks, sounds, and plays the way you want it to. The Karakuri building system is by far the game's most iconic feature. It's reminiscent of Fortnite or Death Stranding, which is kind of a strange comparison to make. You have the ability to quick craft devices out in the field throughout the environment. So the first time you climb a mountain, you'll manually run up the hills, you'll clamber up the walls, you'll exhaust your stamina repeatedly, and it'll be a long drawn out journey. But the next time you climb that mountain, you might build fans, gliders, zip lines, crates, and springs. And everything you build remains present in the world even after you complete your hunt. It's all persistent. So the next time you have to quickly chase a monster from one environment to the next, or you're just running around gathering resources, you'll set up devices to quickly and efficiently move you around the map, often allowing you to get ahead of your prey or just maneuver to your objective without hassle. In combat, you can use this to build massive walls that block enemy attacks just in the nick of time, or you can create massive automated mallets that just wallop your enemies on the head and break their body parts just as they're recovering from an attack. Or you can build fireworks that blind flying enemies and bring them down to the ground. There's a huge amount of variation to the things that you can build. And that list only gets bigger as time goes on, slowly trickling more and more complex and interesting buildings as you go on, but never making you feel bereft of options or overwhelmed by them at the same time. Not to mention, it's fast, fluid, and most importantly, it's actually helpful to build these things. Often the placement of a good wall or the timing of a hammer can save you from a life-threatening attack and make you feel good while doing it. Currently, this game has had a lot of controversy, though. It's been really held back by its performance issues on PC, just really struggling to maintain decent frame rates on high-performing PCs, and I believe that's just due to some poor optimization on the game's part. This might be something that has been patched out now at the time of me reviewing this, but on release, this was easily one of the biggest sort of red blotches on its otherwise quite clean record. And for it being an EA published game, surprisingly, there's very little here going on in terms of monetization. It's not asking you for a season pass. It's not asking you to buy glamorous customization options or cosmetics for your character. It's simply an all-in-one package of a game, and I'm hoping that if this is a game that over the next year is able to maintain a good player base, it will hopefully have the support necessary to start building its own community and its own content in such a way that it will challenge Monster Hunter to make innovations that feel good to play. We'll hopefully be able to talk about the next Monster Hunter game having a more streamlined introduction process, or just mechanics that make it slightly more accessible to new players. At the moment, Wild Hearts is doing that just on its very first release, and I don't know, I think that could build into a real opportunity to rival Monster Hunter. But there's nothing stopping these two games from existing at the same time. I'm really enjoying Wild Hearts, and I hope it continues to flourish. Jamie, obviously you've been playing Monster Hunter Rise, and I'm aware that you haven't played Wild Hearts, but were you even aware of it before its release? Did you see much marketing? Have you watched a trailer or anything?
Yeah, so I saw some images about it. I saw it get announced, and I was slightly interested. I wonder then is if this is the Wild Hearts to Monster Hunter, what City Skylines is to Sim City. Is there anything you miss from Monster Hunter? Is there anything Monster Hunter does particularly better that Wild Hearts is sort of lacking?
So I think Wild Hearts is a more streamlined game. I mean, for one, Monster Hunter has had 8, 10, 12 entries. It's had a lot of opportunity to build up a catalog of 140 different monsters and a formula that is well established. Whereas Wild Hearts is giving it its first go. The monster catalog is a lot smaller. Right now, I think I can confidently picture 10 to 15 monsters that I've fought in Wild Hearts. And I think that will probably go up to 20 by the time I complete it. I can't be sure. Whereas Monster Hunter, I think, has about 100 plus monsters, and not in any singular game, but spread over all its games. It's got that many monsters. And so when it makes a new game, it imports about 30 to 40 of those monsters and then tends to trickle in new ones as part of a free LC or DLC kind of patching cycle.
Yeah.
So it's that streamlined process. There isn't as much customization. There isn't as many armor options or weapon options as Monster Hunter has. But when it comes to fighting a monster, when it comes to the gameplay, when it comes to playing online, click of a button, you're instantly joining 2 other people. There's 3 of you on the map. You instantly load either right next to the player you're joining or the monster that they're fighting. You've got the opportunity to revive people when they go down, meaning that your health going to 0 isn't an instant black mark on the hunt, giving everyone a chance to try and run up to you and save your life before it scratches one of your 3 lives off the map. And it's just, I don't know, the monster designs are fun and interesting, and it does so much. It does so much with its design and UI that it all kind of feeds back into each other. You know, when you walk up to a monster and hit it for the first time, it roars, it stuns everyone in the area, and a big title card pops up telling you which monster you're now about to fight and its difficulty rating on the screen. And when you kill the monster, it goes into a stunned state, and you then have to hit a button to do a finishing blow. And in that time, every player gets to reset, relax, go neutral, maybe just pick up any resources that have been left on the ground in the middle of that fight. And you all kind of get to collectively join together and stand in front of the monster before one of you just takes that step to close off the battle with a cinematic finish that again pops up with a nice big title saying "This monster slain" as the screen slashes through its name, as beautiful artwork of the monster you just defeated is like slapped on the screen as a little trophy of your hard work. And it just has these flourishes from start to finish. Like, it knows where to add just a little bit more production value into its presentation to give the player that feeling. And Monster Hunter does that, but I think Wild Hearts has found a way to kind of just like target key areas where Monster Hunter is just missing that little bit of flair, that little bit of communication with the player, that this is important.
I think that's the thing with Monster Hunter, is that Monster Hunter, you know, in the way that its UI works, in the way it teaches things, it sort of feels like this hunt is happening. It's a thing that happens, and the game just happened to be there, like to catch it. Like when you kill the monster, it just ends, and it just goes thumbs up to who you're playing with, and you go, oh, I didn't even realize we were close to killing it. Like, it just done. And I think a bit more sort of player feedback, a bit more polish. That sounds good. You know, we're going to move on, but before we do, I just I have to ask, how's the UI? Is it intelligible? Is it easy to use?
I think so. I think this is a game that knows what the Monster Hunter audience have been asking for. And I think this game is incredibly clear. I mean, one thing it does is, the first thing I notice is my subtitles could come in 3 different sizes. I went for the large one. Jesus Christ, you could read those subtitles from halfway across the living room. Like, you know, they really want you to have a readable screen. Like, everything is very well intelligently placed. Every bit of information you need is quite intelligently communicated. I think, you know, when it comes to learning a specific weapon, you probably do want to go open the tutorial menu and just read a little bit about the weapon you've just picked. I think that isn't presented to you. It is kind of presented to you in one of those pop-up text boxes, but it's done in that way where the box doesn't make sense until you actually do it and then go back and read the box. But thankfully, you know, you're able to build a little training dummy, and the training dummy will take you through every move in your combo list and explain to you how to do that move.
Yeah.
But just like Monster Hunter, it is a little bit like it's there for when you want it, but once you've done it, you never have to do it again.
But this is the thing about Monster Hunter is that Monster Hunter, you know, when I was learning my character, I'd have to keep reading the same thing over and over again because I would read it, I would go and I would do it, and I would go, I don't understand what happened there. And then I'd have to go back and I'd have to read it again.
Right.
Or I would get a new thing and I'm like, why isn't this working? And someone would be like, oh, because not all weapons work like that in the same category. And I'm like, oh, nothing explained that to me. I just had to intuit that out of things or have someone tell me that. And once someone explains it, you're like, oh yeah, of course, that was obvious. But it just, everything feels a bit just like, you know, obscured and a bit like, you know, I never know when I'm playing Monster Hunter what buffs I have on me, or if my teammates still have their buffs on them, right?
Sure.
My character can apply buffs to people, but I don't fucking know when I'm supposed to be doing that because I've got no indicator as to the timer ticking down or anything like that. So it sounds like it cures a lot of that ill.
Yeah, and it's got that kind of quite nice it's got that climbing system that Breath of the Wild did so well, which is just like pretty much anything can be scaled. It's just you don't have enough stamina to necessarily make it quite far up everything. You can even scale where Monster Hunter lets you mount a monster, but that's a fixed state, like that's an actual like an action you do. This game, you can just jump on a monster and you just hold on for dear life on whatever body part you've just picked, which is really fun because they'll try and run away to the next area, but you'll just be riding on their back and just dragging along.
I mean, that sounds really cool. That sounds like Monster Hunter is the game part of it, but this sounds like the theme part of it. This sounds like it's like, you know, it's about the feeling of hunting these monsters as much as the mechanics of hunting the monsters.
Yeah, and again, I said it earlier, it's faster, right? You will be done with most of these fights in 10 minutes, not 20 or 30 minutes. You will get into your next fight within a minute of ending the last one if you want, rather than taking 5 minutes to do the prep work. The game just really wants you to get back in and get back out and get back in and get back out and just get you to the bit of the game that you like. Which I think is it's a good improvement, because then you can ask yourself, right, what's this other game that people are playing? It's slower. Do I want that? It's more methodical. Do I want that? Or do you want the hyper action stylized one? And it's available there if you want it.
Okay, so you are a one sentence review hunter, and you are out hunting for one sentence reviews. You're like wandering around looking for your big one, and then you see it, and it roars, and it stuns you, and you're stunned by the sound of it saying,
"Watch out, Monster Hunter! There's a new kid on the block, and he looks pretty cool."
Oh, pretty cool. He's wearing shades. He doesn't smoke because cool kids don't smoke anymore. He's vaping.
He's got tattoos, but no one knows if they're temporary or real.
Yeah, but he knows.
But they look good.
It's a tattoo of a man smoking. All right, we're gonna move on to my game of the month. So it's another heart game. But in every other way, it's different. I'm talking about Atomic Heart. I don't love this game. Atomic Heart is a brand new action game by Mundfish Studios. As far as I can tell, this is the only game they've made. The problem is that it has no idea what kind of action game it actually wants to be. The year is 1955. We are in an alternate history where the Soviet Union are thriving, and they've created incredible android robots, an incredibly useful goo called Polymer, and are about to launch a thought network thing called Collective. I was never really fully sure what it was supposed to be. When in development, the game was used as like a promo for Nvidia's RTX cards, as it was going to use their new ray tracing tech. They're releasing all these little clips of like beautiful light bouncing off mirrors and things like this. It didn't launch with RTX in the end, with the ray tracing stuff, sneakily omitting that from most of the release info. But despite that, it does actually look great. The melding of future tech and Soviet aesthetic leads to a very distinct visual feel. Huge monuments, strange offbeat robot designs, and very Soviet-feeling graphic design in environments really helps to build this feeling of a Soviet Union that's fully established itself. Unfortunately, this is about where the major praise ends for this game. Atomic Heart is almost allergic to player control, at least in the first hour of the game. It forces you through a fairly dull opening walk as you have exposition poured over you by every random NPC. You also take a 15-minute cab ride so you can stare at the nice views, and at one point take a solid minute-long lift ride up a building to be handed a note and then sent back down the same minute-long lift ride. When it does allow you to play, though, it doesn't really seem to know how it would like you to do that. It definitely feels like it's cribbing off BioShock in many ways. It pits you against many spooky-looking enemies who are heavily in control of the environment you're navigating. You're given little ammo and access to elemental blast powers you can shoot out of your hand. The thing is, a lot of the game signals that it's best to be stealthy, with ammo being rare and level design aspects offering ways around things, but the stealth is just kind of shit. There's no sense of how far anything can see you, so you just end up fighting everything head on anyway. Health is plentiful enough, and nothing is actually that dangerous, so you can usually just dodge and hack things most things to death. You also, fairly early on, get a gun that doesn't need ammo and just recharges over time, meaning that your more powerful ammo-based guns are just there in case you're feeling too impatient to plink them with the energy gun. It feels like it wants you to have a choice between stealth and guns blazing, but stealth feels wonky and head-on combat feels straightforward. That's not really a choice if one just simply works and the other doesn't. And that feeling extends into every corner of the game. Gun and skill upgrading feels clunky and unsatisfying, overdone and yet underinteresting. Looting is done by waving your hands over boxes and sucking up items, often meaning you miss one or two little metal pieces stuck in a corner. You hate that you miss bits, and it sucks to have to go all the way back for one tiny metal scrap. And this all might be forgivable if the story was good, but unfortunately, its writing might just be its greatest sin. Right from the outset, it feels like it's copying off BioShock's homework without understanding the reasoning behind anything that it did. But even outside of the predictable plotting, the dialogues are just atrocious. The main character spends the majority of the game arguing with his own glove in banter that feels distinctly childish at best. The worst moments of the whole game are when you are forced to interact with a sexually aggressive upgrade robot. Having to listen to some poor voice actress pretend to be a fridge that wants to fuck you to death is near lethal levels of cringe. At the end of the day, Atomic Hearts is pretty mid at best. Its main flaw is it doesn't seem to have any original ideas, and the ones it's trying to borrow, it doesn't seem to understand how they work. It's a lot of pretty pictures, but basically no depth to be found anywhere. Jonas, you played a little bit of this. How did you feel?
Because I had a level of curiosity about what this game was going to be like. I was aware that it was coming out. I was quite looking forward to its release. And so in preparation for your review of it, I played up until the sexually aggressive upgrade robot, more or less. And yeah, in that time, I found that opening to be like, I found it to be tolerable, but I did get bored. Like, I was bored, and I wasn't engaging with, the NPCs were talking over each other to the point that actually I wasn't able to absorb a lot of their dialogue at my own pace because I was just getting 4 different NPC inputs. Like, my glove was trying to talk and my character was trying to talk because he's responding to the NPC in front of me, but my NPC in front of me has stopped saying the dialogue that he's meant to say when I'm far away and started saying the dialogue that he's meant to say when I walk within 5 feet of him, and there's an announcement blaring out of a blimp or something above me. And it was just like this cacophony of just like, oh, fucking hell, like exposition salad that just awfully broke my brain.
And that's the even worse thing about that is if you do listen to all the things people are saying, it's shit. Like, the NPCs just stand around going, isn't it great that we have robots now?
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, the concept of just it's 1955 and we've made good robots. Look, you know, like that's a concept that didn't need the like 20 to 30-minute city walkthrough plus the 10 to 15-minute like cab ride plus like the extra reading through people's documents about the invention, creation, and fruition of robotic technologies in today's societies. Like, I didn't need 3 different mechanisms of world building. I just pick one and perfect it.
What it wants to do is the first part, up until you get into the car, is Bioshock Infinite, traveling through the cloud place. Except it's got none of the subtlety. So it doesn't have the like, these people are racist and they don't realize they're racist. So we're going to deal with this. It's, hey guys, Soviets. Great. And then it wants to do the opening to the original Bioshock, which is it dropping you in the place and it being like, you don't really know what's going on here. You're not in control of the situation at all. And something's out to kill you. But that also doesn't really work. It nearly as good as Bioshock did that. So, but it tries to do the opening to 2 great games back to back poorly, which is just, you know, it's a really bad way to open to give you your first impressions. How far did you get in? Because it does kind of change a little bit. You have an opening where you're in like a facility, and then you eventually get out of that, and the gameplay changes a bit.
Yeah. I said so I got to the sexually aggressive upgrade robot.
Mm.
And then I played for another 5 to 10 minutes.
Okay. All right.
Like,
Yeah.
I think I turned an elevator on.
So basically, when you get out of the original bunker bit, the game says, hey, there's an open world to this now that you'll be traveling around, and that it tries to explain a mechanic where you can like avoid robots and try and sort of sneak your way around the map, but it immediately doesn't work. And the open world aspect of it immediately feels like more of a slog. Like, it definitely feels like a game that should be giving you direction. And it does tell you where to go, but it's like, here's like an open wide area. And you've, up until this point, you've played like 4 hours, 5 hours of this game. And you know that the only thing you're going to find if you wander around is just tiny scraps of metal in corridors and things like that. So it does that thing where it's trying to be like, you know, we're Bioshock, but we've got an open world element. And you go, Bioshock didn't need an open world element. That's, you know, that's what made it good, right? Yeah, it's weird. The other thing as well about the sexually aggressive fridge is they clearly knew it was a lot, because sometimes the fridge doesn't talk like that.
So I noticed something about the fridge, which is you walk into a room. You enter a forced cutscene. The fridge is sexually aggressive, and then somehow your glove hacks it, beats it, befriends it, whatever. And then she just shut the fuck up.
Yeah,
she just stopped talking to me. But the game presented it as, oh, we haven't overwritten her personality. She's still sexually aggressive.
Because she attacks you again later on.
Okay, great. But once you've gone through the tutorial on how to upgrade your first gun, which, by the way, is kind of confusing because it just tells you what to click, but it doesn't actually let you understand the greater picture of these upgrades. She goes through the tutorial. She's still talking to you like, upgrade your gun inside me, big boy. And I was like, okay, I guess, yeah, this is something they're doing. Fine. And then I came back to the room later and I was like, right, I'm probably going to upgrade this next gun now. I wonder what she'll say to me. Silence, just pure silence. And I was like, oh, they don't know what she should say when she's not saying, put your gun inside me, big boy.
No, the wild thing about it is that sometimes she has an entirely different voice. Great. Right? So when you... I think that the sex fridge sums up so many problems with the game, right? Because it has so many problems layered on top of each other. One, incredibly bad writing, right? Just awful. just like lethal levels of cringe. 2, no consistency, because sometimes she's a sex robot and sometimes she's just a normal, like she's just a text-to-speech robot, right? It sounds like it's a different voice actress. It sounds like there's no rhyme nor reason. Some of the fridges are sexy, some of them aren't.
It sounds like the design team came up with a perfectly normal upgrade system and then said this isn't cool enough.
Yeah.
And then didn't replace it. They just put the new fridge
new
on
thing.
top of the old fridge.
Yeah. The third problem is it does this thing that it does constantly throughout the game, which is when something cool happens, you don't experience it through gameplay. It takes hold of your character and forces you into a sort of in-world cutscene.
Yeah.
Which sucks, and they do it so much.
So I have a opinion on that entire thing that I'm going to sum up very quickly. Every single thing that happens to your character in that game, someone wrote and said, this is a cool idea. Conceptually, this is a cool situation to be in. This would be a cool thing to film or animate. So let's do it. And it would be cool if I wasn't watching the entire thing through this one man's perspective. Full stop.
Yeah.
Like there are things that happen in those first 2 hours that it's like, oh man, if there was a director, several cameramen, and an editor at the end of this process, you could cut that to look fucking great. But you didn't do that. I had to watch the entire thing in front of default character number 1, Glove Man, and he just kind of looked at the thing and it happened and he shook his head a bit in a panic and then we moved on.
Yeah, you're right. It's a bad perspective to have it from, and it takes all the drama out of it. And the other part of it as well is that when you're playing the game, if a big like tunnel boring robot comes by or something, it's kind of scary because you don't know where to stand, so you need to try and avoid it or whatever. But any time that anything comes near to threatening you, other than like normal like gameplay punching or whatever, it takes control away from you.
Yeah.
And all of the drama goes because I can't die. It's not going to kill me in a cutscene.
Yeah.
So I just sit back, watch it for a bit. Continuing on my list of things I fucking hate about the fridge, mechanically, that system is so bad. They have 2 menus, one for changing skills and one for upgrading weapons. You can go into either of them from the menu that you talk to the fridge with, and then you can press tab to swap between the 2. But intuitively, you press escape because you want to go back to the menu that allowed you to choose the menus from before, because that's just what people are used to with menus. And that takes you out of the entire fridge, which means you have to then go back in again. Certain upgrades or unlocks or things take you fully out of the fridge. Certain training things force you to click buttons without explaining why you're clicking the buttons. So you just end up with upgrades you have no thought process in. The game doesn't tell you when you have enough mats to unlock anything, and it's kind of unclear, like, if an upgrade further down a tree will be useful at some point. So you just end up, every time you find a fridge, going through every weapon, every single upgrade on every weapon to see if you can unlock any new thing on it. And as far as I felt from playing, like, however many hours I played of the game, I never felt like any gun got any better. Like, when I upgraded my shotgun to be better against robots, it took the same amount of shots to kill a robot. So nothing felt impactful. It felt like a lot of busy work for basically nothing. It just, everything about that felt like people that they were looking at games that did things better, and they didn't understand why those things were good in those games.
So when are you gonna spend the next 20 hours completing this game so it can be game of the year?
Genuinely, when I stopped playing the last time I played it, I thought, I got this far. Maybe I'll see it to the end. Maybe I'll see what the story is. Because, maybe there is a really good twist. Because at the moment the story feels like a guy is obsessed with the Soviet Union, and at some point he's going to find out that maybe it's not. It's all cracked up to be. Oh, what a twist. but maybe there's something good in there. And I finished it, and I thought, look, I'll put another couple of hours into it before the podcast, and I just didn't. I just couldn't bring myself to go back to it.
Fair
So,
enough.
Yeah, I would not recommend.
Should we close the book on this one then?
I think so.
Jamie, you are Soviet soldier man in 1955. And your Soviet allies, man, they're doing real well with all that. They're doing really well with all that new game review tech. The scientific advancements that have been made in game review technology have taken the world by storm, to the point that you are now living in an alternate utopian world society. But everything starts to go wrong. You fall into a facility. You get sexually harassed by Polygon.com and other game review websites. And the only all your game review guns feel like shit, and man, it's not a good time. And you know what? You're starting to think that maybe the best thing that you can do is just completely just emigrate away from the scenario. But the only thing stopping you is a one-line review of Atomic Heart. If you could just provide a one-line review of Atomic Heart, the entire situation, it won't be resolved, but you'll be free of it.
Finally, I'll be free. The most confused shooter of the year, I think, is my one-line sum up.
Wow, and it's only March.
Yeah, I know, right? I don't think another shooter's going to come out this year that feels as disjointed as this. And if it does, that'll be a thing to see.
Hey man, freeware, like shovelware on the internet.
Oh, AAA.
Pretty
Okay,
crazy.
AAA then.
Yeah.
Well, but even games that are like intentionally wacky, right? They're supposed to feel disjointed. This just feels like someone took a bunch of mechanics and shuffled them around in a bag, and then poured them out on the table.
And that's not a good AAA thing to do, really.
Anyway, you've been playing some other games, which I presume you like. Tell me about them.
I played loads this month, so I'm going to rush through this list real quick. New game came out last week, Wolong Fallen Dynasty. It's by the guys who made Neo 2, and Final Fantasy Stranger of Paradise. So it's just a flashy action game that takes place in like a kind of Dynasty Warriors, like Chinese Han Dynasty time. It's cool. It's really hard. The first boss is really hard. I'm going to play more of it and see how I feel about it. Naraka Bladepoint. I started playing Naraka Bladepoint. It's a battle royale game, but it's like Chinese martial arts rather than gun, shooty gun. So it's got champions. All the champions have special abilities. It really wants you to look at all the different ways you can get cosmetics. Like, it's got loads of different quest trackers and battle pass systems and event systems and loads of different ways to try and like hit you in the dopamine face. But if you can just push past all of that, yeah, it was kind of fun. Like flipping around like buildings and grapple hooking onto someone and beating the shit out of them with like a pole spear, and then like diving into another fight and like unleashing cool abilities. Naraka Bladepoint, yeah, cool, fun, interesting. I've played about 4 hours of it and uninstalled it because I've got what I wanted out of it. Solar Ash is a sequel. It's a new game by the guys who did Hyper Light Drifter. In Solar Ash, you're like a character. Yeah. You're a character that's trapped in like a collapsing star, and timey-wimey is all fucked up. So you run around and find these like Shadow of the Colossus style monsters that you have to run around a level, defeat a bunch of, like, basically you have to slash up a bunch of objectives. And once you slash up all the objectives in the level, the boss comes out, and then you have to do like you have to do kind of like roller skate gliding, double jumping maneuvers to run up and down the boss's body and stab it in the face. And every section of the game has a different boss that you have to stab in the face. And once you've gone to all the sections of the game, you basically get an ending and it's over. It's probably like a nice little 8-hour platform action indie game. Highly recommend.
The Steam page says similar to games you've played, Spider-Man Remastered and Fallout 4.
I mean, there's maneuverability stuff going on,
Yeah.
but I wouldn't call it like Spider-Man, and I have no idea why it's like Fallout 4.
Well, there we go.
But there you go. And the last game I want to talk about is just Phantom Brigade. This recently came out. This is a game that I heard about ages ago. It's an interesting little game where it's a little bit XCOM-y in that there is a map with enemy units, and you have less units than the enemy almost always, and you have to do tactical turn-based combat to beat up the enemies. But the gimmick is that you can see what the enemies are going to do over the next 5 seconds, and then you can decide what you're going to do over the next 5 seconds. So you can see that an enemy is going to move forward, shoot the guy on your right, and then move left. Well, now you can move your guy behind a building, so when that shot happens, he won't get hit. And knowing where your opponent's going to go and what they're going to do, you can get them in range for your attack, so you can move out of range for their attacks, or destroy body parts, because it's all mech based, by the way. You're piloting mechs.
Yeah, I'm looking at
so
it
the
right
mechs.
now.
Yeah, they have torso health, arm health, customizable legs, shields, guns. Every gun has optimal range. Every gun generates heat, so you have to do heat management. It's really cool. It's really interesting. I've spent about a good 5 hours with it so far, maybe a bit less. And I'm enjoying it. I don't tend to dive into tactical strategy games, but Phantom Brigade is just so well presented, and it's a very clean. It's just a very clean experience.
So it looks like a very cool, genuinely good tactical mech game. But does it have any anime schoolgirls, Jonas?
No, it does not have any anime schoolgirls. I'm sorry to disappoint you there.
Then it's the game for me. I'm in.
Yeah, so I've been playing a huge amount this month, and I've enjoyed everything that I've played thus far, unlike you.
Well, I have played something really good this month, which is The Curse for the Golden Idol. And I think you'd like The Curse for the Golden Idol as well, because the game I would compare it most to is The Curse for the Obra Dinn. The Curse of the Obra Dinn.
Well, they both have curse in the title, so I can't disagree with you.
So The Curse of the Golden Idol is a point-and-click mystery-solving game where you are you're presented with a scene where someone has died, and you have 2 screens that you can swap between. You have the one which is the scene where you can click on things, and you have basically a journal where it has sort of Mad Lib style, like some text, but with a bunch of words missing. So it'll be like blank blank arrived at blank, where he met blank blank for a meal. They sat down at blank blank or whatever. Okay.
Fill in the blanks.
And you fill in the blanks. So you click around the map and you get different words and things like that. In the first level, you use all the words. The second level, you use most of the words. And then you start to get into the point where you genuinely need a real understanding of what's going on if you're going to solve it.
You're presented with more options than there are answers. You have to know the answers.
But not even that. Like, it does that Obra Dinn thing of you'll put something in that eminently makes sense. Like, it makes total sense. And it will be like, nope. And you'll go, well, how can it not be that? It's clearly that. And then you'll work it out. Like, we had moments where Laura would figure something out. She'd be like, oh, it's got to be this. We go through it, we work it out. And the sort of the back and forth that does, where your understanding of the story helps you solve a mystery, and you solving a mystery helps you understand the story better. Or it's beautiful stuff. It doesn't look like it's going to be that long a game. It looks like it's probably a 4 to 6 hour experience, maybe. But it is. Oh, it's good stuff. Well worth a look.
That sounds pretty fucking ideal. Curse of the Golden Idol. Nice.
Yeah. All right, we're going to move on to the movie section. And Jonas, you're up first this month. Jonas, what are you reviewing?
I'm going to be talking about sound of Metal. Some content warnings for you. With Sound of Metal, there are references to self-harm and drug addiction. So obviously, again, just do some research if you are concerned that any of those elements might be of concern to you. Sound of Metal is an Amazon Prime original film about a man named Ruben, who is a heavy metal drummer played by Riz Ahmed, and he begins to lose his hearing. Sound of Metal focuses on the intense loss that accompanies something as intimate to us as our ability to hear, and frames that loss through Ruben's relationship with his girlfriend, Lou, who is the other half of the band they're in. Without hearing, Ruben struggles to perform the shows with Lou. Performing those shows is their only it's their only form of income. And as Ruben starts to lose one thing in his life, he struggles to hold on to everything else. At the core and heart of this film is Ruben. He is an ex-addict who struggles to communicate and control his anger. Ruben is quick to reject help from those around him, wanting to find his own solution to his own problems. But despite those flaws and his hard-to-approach personality, Ruben just wants to stay with the woman he loves, and he just wants to keep building their lives together. It's a very sort of relatable want. And it's a character that sort of just grows on you throughout the entire story. Sound of Metal is full of moments of hope, heartbreak, kindness, and genuine human connection, all in just the right amounts throughout its story. But where Sound of Metal really excels, I think, is it's in its portrayal of Ruben's journey and experience with deafness. Ruben's loss of hearing is communicated to the audience through kind of, really exceptional audio design. Some of the audio edits made are quite normal and to be expected, to be honest. Moments where Ruben start to struggle to hear, we, the audience, will start to experience, muffled dialogue or audio just cutting out completely, giving us complete scenes in silence to help us see and experience kind of through Ruben's senses in that moment. But there's something about the kind of the specificity throughout the film in when they choose to implement those edits, how they implement those edits. It's incredibly thoughtful and so well curated that every time they choose to play with audio for the purpose of communicating hearing loss, it feels just impactful and meaningful to the viewing experience. It doesn't feel like some drama student just thought, well, that makes sense because the character's deaf, so the audience should be deaf for this bit as well. It feels genuinely very just thoughtful. Riz Ahmed, who plays Ruben, is absolutely phenomenal in his role. He has to play a man with so much frustration and anger and disappointment, and then he contrasts that with so much love and care, not just for Lou at the beginning of the film, but ultimately he starts to build relationships with things around him in his life that just end up being just so well done and subtly presented in Ruben's character. It's just so brilliantly brought to life that to the point that it was genuinely, I think, a shame to be separated from that character when the credits began to roll at the end of the film. I think Sound of Metal is a film that definitely it feels like it has a personal relationship to deafness. And it felt like I think it wanted to tell a deep and meaningful story about how loss of hearing can impact and change your life, but not stop you from living it. This, I don't quite know which awards or what, but I feel like this might have been a film that it was released in 2019. I feel like it might have been nominated for quite a few things. It looks like
I remember it getting a lot of buzz at the time.
Yeah, and yeah, like I basically was just looking for something to watch. I picked this, and I really wasn't disappointed. I really enjoyed this film, and it's not a film that I think I would have gone for were I not purposefully looking for something to watch and talk about. So I'm just really glad that I did.
It won the Oscar for Best Sound and Best Achievement in Film Editing.
Wow. Well, there you go. Like, so I'm glad that I commented on those aspects without even knowing that that's what it was celebrated for, because yeah, they are standout good. I feel a bit proud that I even picked up on that. I feel like I'm a bit of a connoisseur, a
It's
bit of a
almost like
film
you've
reviewer.
learned something over the
Almost
years
like
of
I'm
doing this podcast.
I'm like a critic now.
Oh,
Ooh.
you've learned something. You've got some media literacy going on.
Yeah. So Jamie, so this is I started watching this film and I thought it was going to have a heavy relationship with music industry and metal music, but it really isn't that. It's more of a personal story about like a story of loss and kind of, you know, going through something that very few people have experienced going through. Is there much there that sounds appealing to you, interesting to you? You know,
Yeah, I remember wanting to see this movie when it came out, and just not getting round to it. But you've definitely made me want to watch it more. You know, films that are about so heavily about a disability and finding a way to visualize or audioize, I guess, that disability are really interesting, and it sounds like this does it from sort of a nuanced perspective, a sort of, you know, caring perspective, which I think is really interesting. Yeah, are there any other sort of, you know, are there any other sort of disability films that you think it compares to, or, you know, was it sort of stand out for you on its own?
Oh man, I mean, trying to think of something it compares to means I have to try and rummage through my brain for films that
Yeah,
I
sorry, that
think
was a bit
do.
out of left field. Sorry for
No,
that one.
but I think it is a good question, right? Like the thing that this film does well is it portrays um going through not just a traumatic event, but a life-changing event in the way that your relationship with the world changes forever. You know, it's like you know, it's losing losing an entire sense of your body is massive. And there are lots of films that explore blindness. I think that's generally just quite a common, it's just a more common disability represented in Hollywood media.
I mean, it's the thing that I imagine a lot of filmmakers would be most worried about losing.
Yeah, exactly. And I guess it's something that's kind of like, I don't know, it's kind of easy to imagine you think you know what blindness would be like, because, you know, we all close our eyes, right? But very few of us actually can self-impose deafness for prolonged periods of time, and very few of us can imagine what impact that has, not just in daily life, like going to the shop and just interacting with daily society, but to then juxtaposition that with a man with anger issues, drug addiction issues, and a crippling like dependency on heavy metal and his relationship, you know, like to juxtaposition that disability with that kind of character, it's going to tell a fascinating and engaging story. And Sound of Metal manages to do that with a lot of confidence, and a lot of that really does come down to its phenomenal casting and performances from everyone involved. And yeah, it is just kind of a uniquely interesting story to watch.
And how is the music in it? Is it good? Is it good music?
So, very very little music, little music, because yeah, the beginning of the film is he is a drummer. And within 15 minutes, that's stripped away from him, and it becomes all about.
Really interesting.
It just becomes all about his relationship to losing his hearing.
Yeah.
And
the music leaving his life.
And music leaving his life, and you know, the fact that he's a drummer, you know, he's always, you know, he's so used to finding the beat and tapping on things. But there are beautiful moments in the film where actually, you know, drumming, percussion instruments, they're not all about the sound they make. You know, you can feel a percussion instrument in the environment around you. You can tap on a metal surface and people will feel that from across the room. Sound of Metal uses that, kind of acknowledges that and uses that as a way for Ruben to bridge gaps between him and other deaf people in a way that's just really, you know, it's really kind of wholesome and emotional. but he has to push past that anger and he has to push past that rejection first in a way that's just really thoughtful and heartwarming.
Cool. All right. Well, you are you're a reviewer, and you spend all, but you're also a reviewing fan, right? You like to review, but you also like to listen to reviews, and you keep your ear out for all these good reviews, but one day you start losing your hearing. Not for everything, just specifically for the sound of reviews. And so, you're just having a chat with someone and they go, "Have you seen?" And then, and your life starts to take a downward turn. Your relationships start to fall apart. You start to take up drink and drugs and, all of this kind of stuff. And you end up in a review den, like a back alley review den where people, pass around, really low quality but high strength reviews to each other, and as you're reading it with braille in braille, because you're also blind now, and taking that that hit, your review addled brain just manages to catch the last sort of synapses of your favorite ever one sentence review, which is your one sentence review you remember hearing for The Sound of Metal, and you remember it as
Jamie, before I give you my answer, I'm gonna say this just earnestly to you, my friend, my
Yeah.
podcast co-host.
Yeah.
That was fucked. I have no fucking clue what you were trying to describe to me there. Okay, yeah, I'm touching braille in a room, in an alleyway, in a community of review drug
in a back
addicts.
alley reviews a back alley review den.
Okay, and I'm getting high on my last review or something.
Yeah.
Of The Sound of Metal, and it says, oh man, I'm really struggling with this one. Sound of Metal.
It's hard to remember because your brain's so review addled.
Yeah, no. I'm so blind and review deaf and homeless, I guess, at this point.
You added that bit.
Well, you make it sound like I'm desperately in the alleyways or something.
No, you're
like...
still independently wealthy.
Oh, thanks. Okay, so I'm not sketching out. Okay, good to know. I think Sound of Metal is just an earnest, but like kind of carefully stylized story of loss that captivates.
Beautiful. And that memory, it's rejuvenating, and you regain your sight and your hearing, and everything goes back to the normal, and you return to your everyday life, having learnt nothing, gained nothing, changed in no way. It has no impact on the rest of your life at all.
Jamie, your description of that scenario has taken so much from me.
That's because I'm a storyteller, Jonas.
All right, storyteller. What are you reviewing?
Well, so my review for this month, it's not going to be a long one. I'm basically just going to briefly talk about a film because I intended to watch the brand new Ant-Man movie, and see good old MODOK and his big old stretched face, but I came down with a horrible cold and didn't want to infect everybody in the cinema. So instead, Laura suggested that we watch an old favourite of hers, so that I had not seen, surprisingly. So we watched Who Framed Roger Rabbit, which is surprising because I do animation for a job, and it is one of those films that people always talk about when they talk about like great animation in movie. And I've always wanted to watch it, just the situation never arose. But I finally got my opportunity the other night, and we sat down and watched it. And I have to say, I completely understand why it is the classic that it is. So I'm gonna do I know most people know what this film is, and I know that most things about this film have already been said before, but the format of this show is that I do the review. So we're going to go through all the basic review things, and then we can just chat a bit about the film and we'll move on. But I just want to talk about the things I like about it. It's a 1988 film by Robert Zemeckis, which features a gritty noir-style PI called Eddie Valiant, who's hired to take some salacious photos of a famous actor's wife being unfaithful by the director of his latest film. Eddie takes the photos, but finishing the job sets in motion a dark plot that leads to a man's death and a contested will. Oh, and also the celebrity is Roger Rabbit, a cartoon rabbit. And in this world, cartoons are real and live in sort of a toon ghetto in LA. Who Framed Roger Rabbit is, excellent. It is really, really good. And it fully stands up today as a film. Its plot is an enjoyable parody of gritty noir thrillers. It's funny and it's pacey and it showcases the very best of the cast that play in it. But I think what's most magnificent about it is the visuals. Throughout the film, the cartoons continually interact with real life, and despite this film being 25 years old, nearly all of it holds up. At every point where they could go the extra mile, they do. There's scenes where, like, penguins walk around holding trays of real drinks, like, clattering around. There's Looney Tunes characters playing real pianos. And in particular, Bob Hoskins spends pretty much the entire film interacting with Roger Rabbit. He's handcuffed to him at one point. He's repeatedly hit by him, dragged around by him. And it's amazing how quickly you just forget that they're not really doing that, right? Even as someone who whose job is doing this kind of thing a lot of the time, you just immediately forget that, and you're just fully immersed in the film. This was one of the first films that was doing this. It was one of the first films that actually integrated live action animation in this way. And it's incredible just how right they got basically everything right at the beginning of the thing. And as Koto is saying in chat, it's a film that's so unashamedly rightfully proud of the skill of its artifice. I think that absolutely sums it up, right? It is a movie with a bunch of experts in their field. The actors that are playing in it, Christopher Lloyd is an excellent villain in it. Bob Hoskins is brilliant as the lead. All of the voice cast are fantastic for all the characters. But just the artisans that made it, just the planning that went into every single shot in that film, dwarfs any single shot in that film dwarfs the skill and planning in many entire short films. And I think it's well worth a watch for anyone who hasn't got round to it. Jonas, I assume you've seen this film. I assume I'm the only person in the world who hadn't.
No, so I have seen this film. I saw it quite late in my life, though. I feel like I didn't see it until I was a young adult. And yeah, no, I genuinely do love this film. I remember it just being so incredibly competent and so incredibly skillful. The kind of the practical effects that it uses, and then obviously animates everything in. The tropes that it sets up. Obviously, I grew up on Space Jam being one of my favorite, all-time favorite films. Does the same, it does the same style of mixing real life actors with 2D animated characters, and it was just so incredible
Some of the same
to
characters
watch.
as well.
I mean, yeah, you're absolutely right. And it was just absolutely incredible to watch the precursor to Space Jam do better than Space Jam, technically and just competency wise. And also I think it's generally because it's a noir mystery PI, it's Roger Rabbit is off the cuffs, there's adult humor in there. There's
references to Chinatown and Maltese Falcon and things like that.
It's just full of attitude and edginess that obviously you don't get in the kind of more child-friendly Space Jam. And it's just God, I think a lot of people's animated character sexual awakening is in there with the redhead with the smoking
Jessica Rabbit, yeah.
Jessica Rabbit, and it's just I think that made a lot of people do some internet searching later that day.
I think the really big thing about it is the way that sometimes in things where they integrate animation into real life, that either the animation leads the physical action or the physical action leads the animation, right? You know, you feel like you have scenes where like a human character is walking around and all the animation has to be animated so that they don't get in the way of this guy, or that we know this animated character is going to do this thing, so you need to act like you're being dragged by it or whatever. And I think that what really marries this the animation and the live action in this film, and what makes it, you know, just immediately just become like the movie and you don't think about it anymore, is that relationship swaps over and over and over again within shots and within scenes. You have scenes where, you know, Bob Hoskins is clearly leading Roger Rabbit, and then Roger Rabbit is clearly leading Bob Hoskins. And I think they just knew that there were certain things people would expect, and it didn't take much to break those expectations. But if they did it enough, you wouldn't like your brain would just stop looking for those things. It would just go, okay, it's magic. They're just doing it, and it's amazing.
Yeah. No, I'm watching the little IMDb, you know, preview looping now, and it's just like, damn, it's just so magical to watch. It's so expressive and bouncy and stretchy in a way that good animation just should be.
And it still looks fucking great. And that's the thing about shooting stuff on film, you know, like and you know, painting things onto film as they would have done with the animation. That, you know, the only thing that looks kind of dodgy is when Bob Hoskins himself is in Toontown, and that's because they're painting in the entire environment around him, right? And even then, most of the time it looks great because it's moving really quickly. It's only when they like hold for a little bit that it starts to get a bit ropey.
Yeah.
It like there's so much care in everything. It's really great, and it's one of those films where I'd obviously heard people gush about it forever and ever and ever, but you always think like, well, you know, there's a certain amount of nostalgia to this. There's a certain amount of like, you know, people are bringing their own sort of, you know, Laura was talking about remembering they had a VHS where it cut off at a very specific point and things like that. All those like memories you have of the way you watched it back in the day. But, you know, watching it in Disney Plus with they've got a really nice print of it that they've digitized. It still holds up. I still feel like, yeah, great. I would show that to my kids.
I'm probably going to give this a rewatch at some point. I think I've also got to rewatch Space Jam so that I can watch Space Jam 2 at some point, because I haven't done that yet.
Yeah, I mean, you could just watch Space Jam 2. But
I want to watch Space Jam. I love Space Jam.
Yeah. And then don't watch Space Jam 2.
All right. I don't need a lot of selling on that point, actually. But
yeah.
There you go. Jamie.
Yeah.
You are a gritty noir style PI, and you've got a new job for you, James the Bunyip man. I got a job for you. Listen, word on the street is down in Review Town, someone on the street's been going out giving one-line reviews of Who Framed Roger Rabbit. I don't want that shit on the streets, James. So you're going to go and find that review. You're going to bring it back to me. You're going to read it out to me, and we're going to put the matter to bed, okay? Okay, James?
Okay.
Okay, James. And then you're set free into this environment. You have to track down this movie review. Interestingly, what's interesting, the movie reviews all kind of exist in a slightly different dimension to you, but you all interact seamlessly. Like from the outside in, God, I know this was a story that you and I both lived real life in 1988, but now it's 2023, and darn, it still looks good. You go in, there's a whole bunch of hijinks, a bunch of different one-line movie reviews all join in and kind of create a wacky adventure with all of us. But eventually you get the one-line review to Who Framed Roger Rabbit. You bring it back to the boys.
I'm like,
what does it say?
Holding it down, like it's like trying to struggle out of my arms.
Yeah, you're handcuffed to it as well. It looks really good.
And it says, an absolute classic for a reason.
I don't know.
Wise guy.
I've got nothing more for you there. Everyone in the scene simultaneously puffs a cigarette, and it just goes on for like 10 minutes. and we all move on.
Lovely. All right. Well, before we go on to the random Netflix movie, you've put down Demon Slayer to the Swordsmith village. Ugh.
Swordsmith
Demon
Village.
Slayer to the
Yeah.
Swordsmith village.
Yeah, I want to bring this up. It's quite a funny little story. Demon Slayer is an anime. It had a season 1, then it had a film, then it had a season 2. The film was canonical part of the story, right? Like the film was a sequel to season 1 and a prequel to season 2. So you had to watch it if you wanted to keep up with it. So Mary and I see that this new film is coming out in the cinema. We went to the cinema on Thursday to go see Demon Slayer to the Swordsmith Village. Turns out we were fucking duped and we didn't know what we were watching. It's not a film. It's actually a premiere. It's like a premiere release of the last 2 episodes of season 2 that Mary and I have already seen. And then it's like a cinema premiere of episode 1 of the next season of the anime that's going to come out later this year. So we just sat down like, man, we can't wait for our hour-and-a-half film. And then we just had an hour of like, we've seen this shit before. It's good.
They should have done the Peppa Pig thing where like a real human woman hangs out with the characters from Demon Slayer on a sofa. And they're like, wasn't that a lovely story, kids?
Guys, didn't you recently go to that place? And I hear you had a really hard time. Yeah, we had to fight this person. Let's relive that moment. I think I would have liked that more because it would have had more original content.
Yeah.
But we went to the cinema to see it, so I thought I'd put it in the movie section. I'm a big Demon Slayer fan, so of course this ended up being everything I wanted it to be. I'm not going to use this segment to suddenly start recommending Demon Slayer to people. If you know, you know, and if you don't know, don't worry. I'm going to spend the rest of my life telling you.
Cool. All right. Well, we're going to move on to our final section of the show, which everybody knows is the Netflix randomizer. And this month, well, last month, we were chosen to watch Barbie as the Princess and the Pauper, which is a children's movie in the Barbie-verse, where Barbie plays... does she play both the Princess and the Pauper?
I had a problem with this because neither of the characters are called Barbie, so I don't think either of them are Barbie.
Okay, it's just in the Barbie-verse. So, Barbie and the Princess and the Pauper, it's basically the Princess and the Pauper like children's story. So a princess who's fed up of being a princess because she wants to marry the man she loves, but has to marry a wealthy king to save the kingdom. Meets her doppelganger, who is a debt slave to a seamstress, to a fashion designer woman, who sings beautifully.
Aren't we all?
And through various contrived situations, they swap lives for a bit. Actually, significantly less of the film than I thought they would. I knew that would be the plot, but actually, it's only like a third of it that they swap lives.
It's less that they swap lives, and it's like one person pretends to be the other, while the other is missing for a significant number of the film
and trapped in the other one's life.
Yeah, and then eventually accidentally gets trapped in the other one's life for about 10 minutes.
Yeah. So this is a 3D animated movie. It looks like trash.
That's generous, yeah.
It is a 3D animated movie, but it kind of looks like Sims Machinima. But maybe worse than that. It kind of like often characters sort of move like they've downloaded mocap data from the internet and just chucked it straight onto a character. Characters will like stare dead ahead, but like move their body at points and then slowly turn their head to look at things. I was saying to Laura earlier, everyone looks like they're a doll, which I get is partially the point, I imagine, because it's a Barbie movie. But it kind of looks like they didn't have a choice in that. That's
yeah, I looked at that and just went like, oh Jesus Christ, that's like it looks like freeware 3D animation software was used, and some project students, just some like film students or something, were just like, oh, we got this free software, let's make a film. I likened it to the video game The Movies, where you're
Yeah.
able to make Hollywood movies in a sim style video game.
I don't think it's bad in the sense that its target audience I think would like it. It doesn't do anything like, you know, it's not like, you know, actively poorly made. I think that young girls would probably quite enjoy it, I imagine. But I think that it's incredibly low effort. Like there is no additional pizzazz put into any part of the dialogue or the plot or anything. It is straight down the line on everything. And this movie, it does look bad. It came out in 2004. That's a long time ago for 3D animation, but it did come out in the same year as Shark Tale, Shrek 2, and The Incredibles. So there was people doing stuff better than this.
Yeah. It had some musicals.
Yep.
The first song started playing, and I wanted to rip my own throat out. And then I caught myself tapping my foot in time to the music. And I just felt so disappointed in myself. But that's I say that kind of in service to the middle of the roadness of this film. Its plot was like, oh, yeah, I knew how everything was going to shake out, but actually the play-by-play didn't know that was going to happen. Like, oh, what a surprise that character actually took initiative to try and find out that information. It's almost like someone actually wrote this.
But I think it is an existing story. I think they just cribbed the whole story.
So I don't know the original story, so I had to all I could do was give props to the film I was seeing for its writing decisions. Yeah, the voice acting was really just quite, oh my god, I'm the princess and I feel these emotions.
Yeah. I mean, the actual dialogue itself, there's no real like humor in most stuff. It's just people expositioning a lot of the time. You know, the music is musically fine, but the lyrics are really straight down their line. They're like, I'm a princess, I live in a princess world, I'm a seamstress, I hate my life, kind of thing. Like it's not really anything.
I'm the villain, I want to be rich. Hello,
Yeah.
it's me, the villain again. Marry me. Hello, it's me, the villain again. I'm doing great.
And in that little kids movie way, it does just exposition everywhere they go, and that's fine. You know, it is a kids movie, but there isn't any like. It feels like they did the bare minimum at every step. The one thing I did want to note is their really half-assed attempt to make the princess Barbie like to add a little bit of girls don't just have to be a princess and a seamstress, they can be a scientist too. And that is there's actually two moments where it happens. One is Barbie identifies fool's gold, and she says, "Oh, this is fool's gold," and a man comes over and says, "Very good."
Well done,
well
little
done.
girl.
And the other one is that when she's telling the pauper character tells her that she's effectively a debt slave, right? That her mum ran up a bunch of debts feeding her as a child, and so she now has to work all day sewing dresses, and she hates it, and she wants to get out and like save herself and her mother. And the princess is like, my life is really tough too. Every morning I have breakfast in bed, and then my maid rubs my feet, and all I can think of is that I want to be in the library reading science books.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, the slave girl goes, I'm not free because a woman literally locks me in a room and makes me work.
My
And
only crime was being born.
And the princess goes, I know what you mean. I'm not free to read the books I want to read.
Yeah.
Oh, for shame.
I want to read science books because I'm a modern woman.
Yeah.
I also, I have to mention the fact that the central premise around the movie is that the country has run out of money because their gold mine ran out of gold. And the day it runs out of gold, the country is in crisis. The queen has run this place into the ground. She has extravagant tastes and is running right up against the edge of things. And the way they solve the problem, the way they finish this, is that the princess finds out that there's fucking amethysts that they can mine in the gold mine. Not a lot useful for electronics and also throughout history fairly valuable gold, but fucking crystals. Purple crystals that you find sold at like the gift shop in natural history museums. That'll turn this shit around.
Shiny rock wins. What was I just had a thought and I've lost it. Oh, I like the bit where the princess walks through the city and she's like, my God, I'm seeing firsthand the suffering of these people. Look at that man hammering wood onto his shop that he's forced to close as him and his family now pack up and just walk towards the gate of the city. Like that's how you establish bankruptcy. And then don't worry, because at the end of the film you see them come back and take the boards off. Like they were just waiting. They were just waiting down the road for posterity to return.
Now that there's amethysts in the country, now that the queen has access to an amethyst mine,
I've got
my shop front back. I also liked that she goes into town and she puts like a hood over her hair, like barely covering her hair. That's it. That's all she does. And she goes into town. She's like, no one knows it's me. No one knows I'm the princess. She's wearing this enormous ball gown. Everyone else is wandering around in like, peasant clothes kind of thing. And she's
no one will know that I'm Jonas.
No one could possibly know that I'm a wealthy woman. My clothes clearly cost more than these people's houses. But there was a somewhat decent joke, which is that when they arrive, she says to the guy she's with, who's her like tutor, which of these houses was yours? And he said, we didn't own the whole house. We lived in a room. And she's like, sorry.
Yeah. Like, princess, you misunderstand. I am a lowly tutor. I can't afford a house.
Yeah.
I had a room. You fucking bitch.
All in all, if you have young girls or young boys who like princesses, yeah, fine. But I don't think you're going to want to watch it with them.
I apparently know a group of adults that make it a monthly or weekly practice to watch Barbie films. And so I'm going to go talk to them in the near future and try and get what is the Barbie community's opinion on Princess and the Pauper.
There's just something that just feels really perverse in a way, in a way more than you intended it to.
I just know a group of young, lonely men who will huddle in a basement.
Oh, the other thing I want to notice: there's not a single person of color in that movie.
Well, no, why would they? They're
that everyone is the same skin color.
Why would there be in this prosperous white kingdom?
It's not prosperous. It's been run into the ground. We've just spoken about that.
When did they release a black Barbie? And let's watch the film that came out after they released a black Barbie.
Black Barbie release. 1980.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
1980.
So before 1980, that Barbie had black friends. She has black friends, so she can't be racist.
Not racist.
But in 1980, the first black Barbie came out. Oh, there you go.
Yeah, that is pretty bad. Like they had like a French horse. That's like the most.
That was the most diverse they got. Was that the horse had a French accent?
The poodle was black.
Yeah, I guess. You could say that.
Okay. Oh no.
All right. Well, we're gonna move on to picking next month's movie. Oh my God! So Laura has prepared us some stuff in a hat. Right, here we go. Okay, this is what we will be watching this month, but as always, I will go through all the others. We are not watching The Perfection, an American psychological horror. Okay.
Okay. Yeah, fine.
That's fine.
Good so far. Good so far.
We're not watching The Tribe, Spanish comedy.
Okay.
We are not watching Falling for Christmas, an American Christmas rom-com. That's because it's the wrong time of year.
Good.
We're not watching Trust Me, and then in brackets, Puss.
Means kiss in Swedish.
Okay, all right, okay.
Right.
A Swedish comedy drama.
Yeah, when I IMDb'd Trust Me, lots of things come up, but then the film Puss comes up. So
We're not watching Berlin, Berlin, Lol on the Run, a German
you-
rom-com film sequel to a TV series.
I thought you were going to say Berlin, Berlin, lol.
We're not watching The Masked Scammer, a documentary about a French scammer.
Okay.
We're not watching The Core, an American sci-fi disaster film. I know The Core, I think. Involves a material called unobtainium. Yes, I do know The Core. Okay, here's what we are watching. We are watching
Oh yeah.
Coffee and Kareem, an American action comedy which has 2 stars. And as far as I'm aware, this rating system does it out of 5. So that's not great.
Coffee and Kareem. So this looks like the most film we're gonna watch this year, if I'm honest with you.
Oh yeah, it's got like a poster and everything.
It's a Netflix original comedy film with Ed Helms.
It's got Ed Helms in it from The
Yeah.
American Office. Okay.
So it sounds like it's just going to be not that, like, just not good. Like,
Do
it's
I
not
recognise
bad,
anyone
but it.
else? Betty
I think it's-
Gilpin, I recognise. Yeah, she's in Glow. She was quite good in Glow. That's about it. There's someone called Diana Bang.
Diana
Great
Bang!
name. Yeah, what a great name. There's someone called Garfield Wilson who's credited as Steve in brackets Angry Man.
That's good. That's my favorite. He's my favorite angry man. Okay, well,
So it
Yeah,
has a
I
5.1
guess
out of 10 on IMDb.
I think I'm just glad that we're actually going to watch a film and not a kids fucking special, not a comedy fucking stand-up special, not a documentary about like an obscure YouTuber or person that I just don't care about, or political foreign film that's trying to convince me of conspiracies. It's just a Netflix film, and it's probably going to be a not very good one.
It took me far too long to realise that it's supposed to be a pun on coffee and cream.
Right. When you said coffee and cream, I was a little bit like, coffee and cream? No.
It's police officer James
because they're-
Coffey and
because they're-
12-year-old Kareem Manning.
Because they're black and white. One's black, one's white.
But Coffee is white. And
Coffee is
Kareem
white and Kareem
black.
is black. You couldn't.
Look at what they did.
You can't write this shit. Rotten Tomatoes has a much lower opinion of this film.
It has a Metascore of 35 out of 100.
It has a tomato meter of 21%.
Rolling Stone gave it 0. Los Angeles Times review begins with the movie is disturbingly reckless, needlessly brutal, and deeply homophobic.
Oh, deeply homophobic. Oh man.
Well,
is it? Do you worry that there are like genuine ethical concerns that we expose ourselves to media that might genuinely slowly start to make us into worse human beings?
You think Coffee and Kareem is going to turn us into homophobes? Is that your worry?
I think it could be the straw that breaks our back.
We were right on the edge.
Right on the
Coffee and
cusp.
Kareem is the thing that does it.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, tune in next month to find out if we're homophobes now.
Tune in every month, please, and ask
to
yourself
keep us
the question
honest.
before you click the play button. Ask yourself the question. I wonder if they're homophobes now.
Are we homophobes now?
There's a review on Rotten Tomatoes here for this film. A profoundly irritating, cacophonous mess.
Lovely.
Says
I
it
can't
all.
wait. I can't wait. It's gonna be great. Oh boy.
Let's put this one on the big screen. Should we hire out a cinema and watch this on the big screen?
I I every time something like this happens, I'm just so glad that in the very first podcast I chose to spring this on you.
It's such a shit gimmick that we get a lot of mileage out of.
Oh man, everyone always looks forward to talking about Barbie. Sorry to double back, but after I finished Barbie and as the Princess and the Pauper, do you know what Netflix recommended me to watch next?
No, I don't.
The Peppa Pig movie.
Right, right, of course. Does it not know that you've already seen it?
It was like starting the trailer in 5, 4, 3. I was like, no, please. No,
Have you done the thing that I do where you have a separate profile for this
No.
shit? Or all right, okay.
No. But to be fair, I never actually look at my Netflix front page. I go to Netflix when I have something I want to watch on Netflix.
To watch something, yeah. It's a good idea. Okay, well, yeah, coffee and cream next month. Coffee and Kareem.
All right. Well, thank you for watching, everybody. Thank you for joining us. That's it for this month. We'll be back next month with more good reviewness. If you're watching the live version of the podcast on twitch.tv, you can find us on all good podcast sites. Just search the Bunyip Review and you'll find us. You'll find a back catalogue of tons and tons of all our old episodes, and also the audio versions of the award shows, which this year's one will be going up soon, I imagine. I've said it like 100 times to him in like off stream, but I'm gonna say it again. Jonas has absolutely fucking nailed the audio quality now. They sound muy caliente. So check it out. If you are listening to the audio version, if you're listening to our crisp audio, you can watch us live. You can see our beautiful faces on the first Tuesday of every month. Just go to twitch.tv/the Bunyip Man, and you can find us. You can also search at the Bunyip Review on Twitter, where you'll find we post when we go live and all this stuff. And yeah, that's where you'll find us. Is there anything I've missed, Jonas?
The fact that I can't tell you that you've missed anything probably means you've not missed anything unless I've missed something. So we're both accountable.
Great. Well, good. All right. Well, thank you for listening, everybody, and we'll catch you next time.
Yeah.
Bye.
I'm pausing because sometimes we try and recommend something at the end of the podcast. And I'm trying to find something to recommend. But I haven't found anything to recommend. But I was hesitating because I thought you were going to ask me.
Well, we hadn't written anything in, so and it's also 11:07.
Yeah, it is late. All right. We can end the podcast, can't we?
All right.
Can't we?
Bye, everyone.
Yeah, bye, everyone.
Cool. That's the end of the podcast. I just Googled translate caliente, Koto, and Google says caliente means hot or warm.
So the podcast is hot.
Are you saying that's what you thought it meant?
That's what I thought it meant, yeah.
Yeah.
Koto says it means very horny.
You think that's what it means.
Hmm?
You don't use it like you think that's what it means.
Oh, the context thing. No, I think the podcast sounds very hot.
I think the podcast sounds very horny, so we're both right.
Well, either way, great.
Koto, don't pretend that you don't agree with one or both of those statements.
Yeah, sometimes it does sound really horny, and that's a problem.
Especially during like the 2.5 like panting sessions we just do on the podcast.
Jonas 2
just-
translations go away. Perfect.
All right, you gonna remember that for next episode?
Not at all.
No. I'm gonna stop recording my audio on my end.
Oh yeah, I'll stop mine. Cool. Well, thank you for watching, everybody. It's a bit of a short week for streams for us, because I'm playing D&D on Thursday, so it's only Stardew tomorrow. So tune in for Stardew tomorrow. And even worse, I'm away from Wednesday next week. So next week there's only a Tuesday stream.
What are you doing?
I'm on holiday with Laura.
You
a
going
little
anywhere?
trip, going on a little break. I'll tell you after.
All right. So you can't be followed by the stream audience.
Yeah. But yeah. So join us for Stardew tomorrow. Jonas, have you got anything else you want to chat about?
Yeah. I mean, I'm not really streaming much at the moment, just because I've been on the PlayStation playing Wild Hearts. We've got a new television in the house. I've not had a new TV in over 10 years. So for the first time, we've got an OLED television. It's like a pane of glass.
Yeah.
Just like top to bottom with just a little bump for HDMI bullshit.
Beautiful.
It's a smart TV. Not that I care to use any of the smart features because I'm old and grumpy. But yeah, like, man, playing the PS5 on a 4K OLED television has proven to be quite the treat.
I am well gel.
So basically, my point is I'm actually not sitting at my computer a lot of my time in my spare time. Mary and I are going to Dublin this weekend, so yeah, not going to be streaming, not going to be doing much, to be honest. So I just wish
is everyone's been abandoned by you.
Yeah. So yeah, my plan is fuck off and have a good time.
Cool. All right. Well, it is late, so we're gonna hop off. Thank you for watching. Let's see. I don't normally raid anyone after the podcast, but I should. So let's do that now. Let's have a look. See who is Drem.
Remind people that we exist.
Yeah. Hello. Who is Drem?
We are here. For me, it's Fuzzy Freaks and Ellie Joy Panic. Don't know who you've got on your end.
Well, you know what? I'm gonna send you. I know they don't need the views, but I'm gonna send you to someone who I watch all the time and talk about all the time. Shut up and sit down, because they're streaming. I think they were streaming King's Dilemma today. They're board game review people.
Oh,
they're
okay.
really, really good. So I'm gonna send you them.
Nice.
I think that the /raid command should start autofilling channels when you start.
I
typing.
fucking hate that it doesn't, because I do the @ symbol, and it doesn't autofill unless you're in my chat.
Yeah.
And then it turns out that for raid, you're not supposed to use the @ you're just supposed to type it in raw. And I don't do
go
that.
in raw.
Got to go in raw, and I don't go in raw. It's a philosophy.
All right. Well, bye everybody.
Good night, everyone. Good night. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening.